Great, welcome everybody. The setup is a little bit different because we have to change. We had that big screen, but it is broken. That's the reason why we have this smaller area now. Let's do the talk.
Yeah. So you want to start already? Because it's 10 past. I think it was 15 that we started. Give people more time or? Yeah. Wait 5 more minutes. Unless nobody comes in the next minute, then we'll just start on that 5 extra minutes in the session, which is always good.
What are we doing between?
Do a little quiz. Some acronyms and then see if everybody knows what I mean. Yeah, I can start. It was 11 o'clock, so we're even running late. Oh, okay. So you're late. You're gonna get the compressed version now. I'm between you and lunch, so it's always I need to make sure that I keep time. Good morning, everybody. My name is Niels van der Kam. I'm the, as it says there, head of Business AI in the Benelux region. So what I do is I inform and inspire on everything what we do at SAP with AI, which is a lot, and which is also kind of a different thing than most people expect that we do. Sometimes I get the comparison, how does SAP compare to Microsoft in terms of AI? We don't. How do we compare to AWS? Which is the other room. So if you want to do the AWS story, you need to be on the other side of this wall. But no, we don't compare. We use and we leverage their platforms. We leverage their technology as we leverage a lot of the other technologies that are out there. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you what we do. And I'd like to keep it interactive. We do have 45 minutes, so I can't answer all the questions, but I'll be here during lunch, of course. But let's see how far we get. We see a lot of these kind of messages popping up over the last few, let's say, months, right? SaaS, software is dead. SaaS is going to be replaced by AI. This is somewhere mid last year. Beginning of this year, slightly different tuning. SaaS is not dead. SaaS is just going to get an agentic component. What does that mean? Right? I'm going to show you. We're going to talk about this. What does this mean? How does AI affect the world of ERP software specifically? What are we doing to make sure that we get the most out of the AI technology that's out there? But I'd like to start off with an example. And the example is on accruals. And I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what an accrual is. So just a 1-minute finance course here. At the end of a financial close period, you need to register costs in your books. Also costs that you maybe have difficulty booking because you haven't received the invoice yet. As an example, electricity, for instance. So you use electricity, maybe you use a lot of electricity in your production processes, and you need to account for that, but you haven't gotten the actual invoice yet from the electricity companies. But you need to register in the book. So it's kind of a best effort guess, to accounting policies, of course, how you register that in your books. This is a manual process that happens at the end of each finance close period. A lot of manual labor there. And basically what gets done is these work instructions are put up for people who need to book these actual accruals, as they're called. And this is a laborious process. It's not a simple if this, then that process, because you need to actually account for how many electricity in this example you've used in the last period. And there might be more than last period. There might be seasonal patterns here, you name it. So there's also all sorts of influences on how much the electricity in this example, again, could fluctuate, and you need to book that in a specific way. So people do this, they get the instructions and they go ahead. This is manual labor, right? A lot of manual labor, because you can imagine that it's not just this little bill, but a lot of postings. What we now have in the system is that we can upload these working instructions to an agent. That agent reads through the instructions, and not just this instruction, of course, but all the instructions that are out there. And then based on that, it will do accrual postings for you. Not exactly, it'll create suggestions for you. So you upload it into Joule. We'll talk about what Joule is. Who knows what Joule is? Who has seen it? Who has worked with it? All right, cool. I'm going to show you some fun stuff. This is Joule. If you haven't seen it, it's a Copilot system. You just upload that accrual booking, and then based on that, it'll start creating these accruals in the system. At least it'll do the proposals for that, and then in the final stage, an accountant or a controller will actually approve these accruals. So instead of having to figure out what the accruals are each month, you just get a list of suggestions, and the only thing you have to do is approve / post them. And you also, of course, always get some nice feedback on the reasoning, how these agents came up with these specific accruals. So this is really how agentic AI will change the way that manual labor is being done in organizations. And this is how we are agentifying, that's the word, the ERP suite. I'm going to show a lot more examples, but I just wanted to show this off because this typically takes hundreds of hours each month in larger companies. These are accrual bookings, something the finance department does. So really driving value. It is not something that happens out of the box, driving value with AI. Because if you look at these numbers, 60% of companies are experimenting with agentic and generative AI scenarios to improve the concept. 20% succeed. 5% actually put them into their business processes. Staggering numbers. This came out of an MIT study last year, somewhere mid of the year, where they looked at the state of AI in business. So these staggering numbers. Why is that? Well, they obviously looked at the companies that do succeed, that 5% over there. What are they? Why do they succeed? Well, they succeed because they typically pick a specific process running in their organization, see where AI can help, and then implement AI in that process. So instead of taking a generic route, where you have a big toolbox, you start to experiment, something that we maybe have been doing for years already, maybe decades even, because AI is not new. So typically it was something that was outside of the main processes in your organization. Data set gets extracted, it's given into the hands of a scientist, later data scientists, they go to work, nice outcomes sometimes, and then there's typically a file drawer, it disappears. Because how do we actually implement it into the actual processes running in the systems? And that's what we're here to change. That's what we do at SAP. That, by the way, is a QR code. We'll send this deck, of course, to you, so you can also click the link then. But if you want to scan, you get to the actual paper. So what do we do at SAP to make sure that we create that value from AI, that we make sure that AI efforts are not disappearing into that file drawer in the end? We talk about the flywheel of applications. So that's our suite. Data and AI, interconnected applications, creating data feeding into AI algorithms, AI output flowing back into the processes, optimizing that, making sure this is a continuous loop and not something that's broken, not something on this part that happens outside of the system. If I expand this, you might have seen this graph. This is basically our suite first, AI first strategy, right? 3 layers. Quickly going through them before we're going to start and looking at some fun stuff. The application layer, of course, could be the SAP landscape, could be the non-SAP landscape in the broadest sense. So obviously it's an SAP slide. Forgive us that the non-SAP box is a little bit smaller, but really want to highlight here that we do see that your landscape is much broader than just SAP, of course. There is real valuable data in this application layer, of course. Sometimes we need to bring that data together. SAP Business Data Cloud is a data harmonization layer. And this is one of our slides that basically shows a strategy. And then on top of that data layer, you kind of see stacked our AI solutions. The thing is, most of our AI solutions work directly on top of our application landscape without the need of any harmonization layer to begin with. We'll talk about the need and the benefits of that data layer in between later on. But for now, please, just erase this box from your mind and think about AI as stacked on top of, actually infused into our application portfolio. And then we basically have 3 main focus points. We introduce Joule as the new UI into the system. On top of every application, on top of every solution, Joule. We're going to talk about Joule a little bit more. Then the second pillar of our focus is embedding AI into those processes that I was talking about already for a few times. So that means making sure that processes running in any of these applications get optimized, get become more efficient, or maybe driving better quality throughout the portfolio. Embedded cases, there's a lot of those. I'm going to show a few. And then the last pillar that we have there is, together with our customers, really creating industry-specific, customer-specific AI use cases. So when you're in this room and you might get inspired, or over the rest of the next 2 days, you might get inspired and you have some ideas about how you could work together with us. Okay, let's see what we can get together. Again, the data foundation and the applications. So let's look at Joule. Joule is basically is a co-pilot system. It's not within one of the applications, it's across the entire portfolio of SAP, and even extends beyond. We'll talk about that in a few moments as well. And then you can do a few things. You can request information from the system, basically asking it, show me a list of overdue purchase orders or something like that. Requesting information from the system. You can also navigate the system. Go to a specific Fiori application, based functionality, I would say. But then it becomes more fun. You can also do transactions. So you can ask Joule to create an asset for you in the system. And without having to know to which application to go to, how to create an asset, Joule will actually take you on a kind of intuitive conversation about what information it needs from you to create such an asset in the system. And this really changes the game a little bit in terms of, you all work with SAP? You've all did training, right? At some point, to get to know the system. Yeah, and in new version, new training, because a lot changes. This is going to go away for some part. Not entirely, for some part it will, because instead of you having to know where technically to go in the system, you can just interact with Joule, and as long as you know what to functionally describe what you need, Joule will help you achieve what you need to do. Then there's a last pattern, that's the analytical pattern. You can also request analytical information. So basically get those, and you all know embedded analytics probably in S4, or otherwise you might know solutions like SAP Analytics Cloud, where you request this information. You'll now be able to do this via Joule as well. These first 3 ones are live. This one's coming, I believe, by the end of this quarter. So that's almost. Right, so let's look how that actually looks. It's a little bit tricky. Yes, it's going to move. So here we are in a system. For the people who haven't seen it, if you have Joule enabled in the system, you'll have that little diamond. Not sure why AI is always sparkles or diamonds. It doesn't matter which supplier. You click the diamond icon and then Joule pops up. And then basically this is asking for some information. How does credit check work in SAP? And now you just get information. It's basically a knowledge base as well. So you get the description of how you need to achieve this in the system, including source references where that information came from. So if you want to deep dive on it, you can just click. You'll be jumping to a learning site or one of the community pages, etc. Now we're requesting information another way. Show me overdue order. And then a little bit of a follow-up question. How do you want to see that? In which currency? This depends on how your system is configured. So if this is not a non-relevant question, you'll not see it. I want to see it in euros, and now you'll see Joule popping up a list of orders in the system. So here's what I found, and now you can scroll through that list. Of course, you can expand that a little bit. You get some details there on the right as well. So this is the full mode. Also here on the left side, you can see you have chat history with the system as well. So you can jump to previous conversations, will be kept active for 10 days, and then it will be killed. But they will remain as a sort of a history. Now I just jumped by pressing open and jumped to such a specific order, such a PO item. So you see it here on the left. So it's fully interconnected with the system. And this is really important to highlight for the first time. This is AI directly in the system, right? There where you want to work, where you're doing your transactions, where you need to retrieve information, is where you need to do the transactions. This is where you can do it directly in the system. It's going to go on a little bit. Show me production orders planned for today. So you can also start to really specify and give filters, but just by describing what you like to see. You see them, and now you can even get some summarization. This is actually a little bit of a combination already of Joule and embedded cases. When you work on orders, You might do that by yourself, but typically multiple people over a longer period of time are working with these orders, whether it's a purchase order or sales order, maintenance order. So you can just ask Joule to summarize it. And meanwhile, the video just runs on. I'm gonna let it run in full because then we'll hear for a longer time. But this is how Joule works, directly in the system. This is the architecture of Joule, and this is important to understand a little bit. We're not going to go into technical details this morning, but basically Joule is by most people perceived as the overlay, as the user interface that you just saw. But obviously Joule has an engine. And that's where the real magic happens. And what actually happens is you ask a question to Joule, we look in the scenario catalog. If we understand what you try to achieve, what's your utterance, and what is it that you try to achieve. And in most cases, we can do that directly. There's some large language model technology involved here to understand your question better. And we look in our scenario catalog to see what you try to achieve, and then we kick off what we call a Joule function in a system. So these are the ERP landscape, one of our other solutions, and basically API calls get done, or at least application interfaces get addressed. Information gets pulled up. We use large language models to then nicely format your answer and send it back to the user interface. So that's how Joule works. It's decoupled from the systems, making sure that we can expand. When this expands, we can expand our scenarios here. And when you hear our C-level people talk about, and we already have 2,400 or 2,600, I believe the number is these days, functions that work with Joule. Basically what they say is we have 2,600 of these scenarios in our catalog. We make sure that we understand what you do. That was a question.
Two questions. Dus if you will do something that's not a scenario catalog, or is it you always try to match what the user asks to Joule scenario catalog?
Yeah, so the question is, for people who didn't get it, can Joule also do things that are not in the scenario catalog? Yes, it can, and I'll show you in a bit. So I'm going to park the answer to the question for a few moments, because we allow you to extend that scenario catalog.
So yes. For like a custom application?
Yes, for custom applications, or even for interfacing with non-SAP applications, for instance. But I'm going to show you later on. Yeah. One question. You had two, as you said.
My follow-up.
Okay. There was a follow-up question. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Yes, you can extend that scenario catalog, because we understand that there might be customizations in the system that are not covered by the standard scenarios that we have there. So we allow you to extend. Another way to extend is through grounding. You can also ground your, let's say, internal processes, because we of course know how to define, let's say, a sales order in the system. But you might have a specific process for that. And that typically is documented in some PDF, which lives somewhere on your SharePoint or other Sins environment. And what we allow you to do is ground Joule with these documents, so that basically in Joule you can ask how do I create a sales order. You get two answers, basically the standard SAP process, but also then added to that the way that, in this case, Booking would do that in the system. So grounding, it's all in there. This is how it works, and because it's worked like this, we also allow you just to use another interface. If you don't like purple, please use another interface. So I know that later on, Holger is going to talk about the Microsoft Copilot Joule integration, because they are fully integrated. All the questions that you can ask to Joule, you can ask to Microsoft Copilot, and we do that via this mechanism. Most people in your organization work on this side of the screen, right? They work in their office environment. That's where email comes in. That's where they chat with colleagues, etc., etc. So what we have is a strategic cooperation where we have an agent living in Copilot. You can just install, and when you've done that, basically, if you ask an SAP-related question, it gets forwarded to the Joule engine, which handles the question and relays the answers back to Copilot just to visualize it. Sometimes I get the question, can't we just do that directly without Joule? Technically, yes, you can. But then for each question that an end user on this side will ask, you need to make sure that you understand where to go on the SAP side of things. Oh, it's becoming really dark over there. Somebody move. But so this is what that's not what you want to achieve. Yes, you can do that technically. Technically, everything is possible. We say in IT, but that's not what you want to do. So leverage the power of Joule, which is in the system already, and then make sure that the answers are just visualized in the environment that you'd like to be visualized in. We're expanding this even further in the future, potentially to other co-pilot systems as well. I had a little video. I'm not going to run it in full, but I want to really highlight here is sometimes I get the remark, I can be faster if I just use the SAP GUI or when I use Fiori interfaces. That's true if you're a power user. That's one. Second, here, see the power. There's a interview that I had with one of my employees that gets summarized by Microsoft Copilot because it's stacked in a Word document. In that summarization are a few performance or goals, at least, that I want to book in SuccessFactors. And now comes the magic. Instead of having to take them out, go to SuccessFactors, create the performance goal in SuccessFactors, I just asked Joule to, based on the summarization that Microsoft Copilot did, create a summarization and use that summarization in SuccessFactors to create those goals without me having to copy paste all the information. Now try to do this and try to see if you can still be faster than this. And this is the way that you should work, of course, with Copilot systems. I'll let the video not run because it's just going to do some more fancy stuff in Joule. There are multiple versions of Joule. Who has heard of Joule for Consultants? You check it out. Joule for Consultants is basically any question that you ever wanted to ask to a SAP consultant. You can ask it to Joule for Consultants. It's a knowledge base that has been grounded in all our learnings, in our internal product documentation, in the community pages, in the notes. So if you want to have note information, you can all find it here. You can just ask questions. So it is just a few moments ago, I logged in. How do I do price configuration in S4? It'll give you these answers, including all the references again. You see the little numbers there popping up. This goes on for a long time about how to do price configuration in an S4 system. This is a really powerful tool. Everybody who is a power user in SAP should at least check it out. It goes way beyond what ChatGPT, for instance, knows, because that knows the public internet. It can't go behind paywalls. So all the documentation that's behind an S user can't be reached. This has it all. Check it out. It can do ABAP code generation. It can write functional designs. Jan is here. He typically gives a very nice, as one of my colleagues, a very nice demonstration about the combination of Joule for Consultants, where he asks Joule for Consultants to write a functional design for an application, then uses that functional design to plug it in another tool that we have in a development space called Joule for Developers. And that then generates a Fiori application in 2 minutes, live. Is that something that you're going to deploy in your production environment? No. But is it something that you can do to, for instance, do rapid prototyping with your business users? Yes. Much better than going to a basement 3 weeks, coming back. No. Needs to be reconfigured. So something to consider. Joule for Consultants. Take a look at that. Again, some of the background information. Right. So that's Joule as the new user interface. It's not going to replace Fiori today. It's even not going to replace the SAP GUI everywhere, I guess, in the next few years. But it will be where we are heading in terms of interfacing with the system. And please keep in mind, this is not, you can work faster. It's also the way that your next, let's say, generation of co-workers will want to work, right? Because they are not used to the keyboard anymore. They are used to their mobile devices. And it's like we call like this with our mobile phone. People from my age call like this. My kids call like this, if they call at all, right? So that's really a different way of working with business software. Let's focus on that second pillar. It was the embedded cases. There are endless embedded cases. And so I can possibly show you all. We are currently at some 400 cases that are documented, that are throughout the portfolio, that will rise to about 800 by the end of this year, so it will double. And these are all nice numbers, but they're not so relevant because you need to see which cases really work for you as an organization, of course. So that could be just 3, or maybe 4, or maybe just 20. Check out what works. We have nice AI discovery workshops that we can run together with you to really find out what could work for you. But a lot of these cases are more and more moving towards the agentic side. So instead of just using generative AI or AI to speed something up, create some efficiency benefits, we really are taking over a little bit of the work done typically by people in the organization. The accruals agent that I showed you before is an example of that, where you really start to speed up. So agents in the business process. Video running now. So it's fun if it does start. Yeah, it does something good. Another example of an agent. Don't start to read it. It's just Joule is being opened, and now instead of me asking a simple question like retrieve a sales order or something like that, I ask to do an analysis of overdue invoices for a specific customer. And this is where the agent starts to pull together data from multiple sources. So it pulls data from the system in terms of invoices, overdue information, but it also combines that, for instance, with information that it pulls from the public internet in terms of Dunning scores that the organization has, which basically determines how the creditworthiness of the customer. So it combines that, and then based on all the information, you can ask it to give some recommendations of how to proceed with these overdue invoices. And then based on how this specific is configured, it gives you some way forward. Let's create a few disputes where we take the overdue balances to the next step. And then, for instance, also set that priority to high so that we actually start to deal with these disputes in the system. So really helping you, taking away a lot of the information combination work that typically is done in organizations by people. Out-of-the-box agents, this one will be released, I think, in April. Just you can install it in the system. So this is the same thing. So these are a few of the agents coming in all domains. So on the finance side, so the dispute resolution, you saw that accounts receivable agent, that was the one that you just saw. The accruals agent is the one that I started off with. It's all coming, and as you see, most of it is even already running in beta or in our early access customers that have installed in the systems. More is coming. Again, we'll share this with you. So this is here. Now we come to the extension part where the question was as well. It goes next to the fact that we deliver things out of the box. That was a question. Sorry, it's a question.
Yeah, the slide before.
Yeah.
Use agents on the system specific or user specific? Like, let's say I want to restrict a user to certain agents. Can I do that?
This is a very good question. Typically, I get it. It gets asked earlier, actually, because I always wait. When does the authorization question pop up? Joule and our agentic cases. First off, we have a human in the loop principle when we design AI currently. We could do a lot of things automatically. Currently, we choose to always do proposals that a human still needs to approve. So that's one. Second, you install these for a role. Third, when you look at the whole architecture of Joule, Joule gets instantiated as you. So it can't break your roles and rights in the system. So you can activate Joule for a user, and then based on the business roles that somebody has, he or she can or cannot do something. So if you're in the finance department and you start to ask questions about purchase orders, the system will say no, just as you can't open the Fiori app. So it fully adheres to your roles and rights in the system. So it cannot break that. So it's not a system-wide admin account or something that Joule runs that can pull up all information and does some filtering afterwards. No, just pulls up the information that you can see to begin with. And you can do it in a Fiori app, or you can do it via Joule. And that's built into, this is tricky, scrolling back, into this mechanism, right? I showed this architecture. Calling these Joule functions happens with principal propagation, etc. So within your role. So if you try to achieve something on the calling of functions in the system that you can't do, System says no.
I also have a
mismatch regarding like, I want to know how is my company doing on a certain point, and I'm only part of a
Mhm.
certain part of the company, and I would just get an okay, but then if you look at a higher, I'm not able to look, it could go not the department that's really doing something.
Yeah, so this is a valid point, of course. You get the information. Also, let's say if we make it technical, you row level restrictions. So you only see the data that you're allowed to see, right? So if you ask what's the revenue for the company, and then you get a number, that might not be the overall revenue. So you might get a very positive one versus somebody else who does have access to the overall numbers will get a totally different number. Yeah, but that is, I would say, inherent to the way that would also happen when you open a Fiori app. And ask for the same information.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Is it restricted for RISE customers?
Very good question as well. Yeah, we only supply Joule in the cloud, so that will be Rise or Grow customers or one of the LOB solutions that are SaaS. So solutions to begin with, yes.
No.
Not on premise. No. It has to do with a lot of things, and we need to guarantee that's the main reason. We need to guarantee the results of Joule. And in super customized systems, where the control over data structures, etc., and customizations is very limited, we cannot guarantee the outcome. So that's one. Second, the AI technology is evolving at such a rapid pace. Compare that to the average update cycle that companies have on premise, which typically take a few years for major versions, right? 4 years ago, there was no ChatGPT. There were no generative AI solutions and systems. So if that is your update cycle, imagine where we'll be in 4 years from now. So we need to have a much higher pace of also not just updating the AI technology, but also the underlying systems, making sure that when we call these systems, they are, not when, but that we can call them in an AI-ready fashion. So yeah, that's why only in the cloud. 2 questions. I think behind you, yeah.
I have a different question than the authorization. I was wondering, in your example about checking people that hadn't paid in time, there could be 2 sources of error. One is an error in your registration data, so in the source of the data that you're finding out, but there could also be error in your agent itself. At least these large language models often are not without error. So I was wondering, how do you handle that? Because it is actually a sensitive matter.
Good question. First, registration error. That is something that's obviously it can't be helped here as well. You would have that in any scenario. Data quality, data governance are becoming much more important. It's always been an important topic. It's typically not one of the topics that people are overjoyous to work in because it's cumbersome. It needs attention. It requires processes as well, etc. But registration quality is becoming very important because the AI will only be as good as the data you feed into it, of course. So that's answer to your first question. The answer to the second question that you had, how do we make sure that the AI algorithm does not hallucinate? That's basically the question, I would say. I scroll back to this thing. First, you see this concept called the knowledge graph here, the SAP knowledge graph. If you want to find out where data resides in the system or which API endpoint you need to request certain information, you need to know where to look. This is not something that you can delegate to a large language model, because if you ask a large language model where in SAP do sales orders live, you'll probably get a nice list, but it probably is hallucinated as well. And you can really easily show that. Try it. So what we've done is we've created a network database, a knowledge graph, which basically ties together in a functional way. It's a network database tying together all data objects, all data artifacts, all entry points, all APIs in the SAP realm. And our AI technology will start to leverage that for the rest of the year. So that's one. Second, and when you ask a question to Joule, that question gets surrounded by a whole prompt template. So we never send off just the question. We send off the question, okay, this question is being asked by this person in this specific role in the organization, and making sure that there is a whole set of extra information sent together with that question to optimize the output. And there is content screening, there is masking of data happening here. So there's a whole orchestration flow running as well next to that knowledge graph. And this is how we minimize or bring down to zero the hallucination. Oh, that answers the question. There were multiple questions. I'm going to take them up in the break because I'm looking at the time. And according to the original plan, I think we almost need to stop. But there's much more to tell. So please just find me in the break. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about we were here, right? So next to the stuff that we deliver out of the box, we allow you to extend. There's a concept called Joule Studio. Who has seen Joule Studio? Still hands, but the number of hands are going are really few. Joule Studio basically allows you to extend Joule. It's a low-code, no-code way to make sure that Joule can not only live or answer questions that we have thought of, but that can answer a question that you thought of. You basically can do two things in Joule Studio. You can create Joule skills. That's basically extending that scenario catalog. Not going to show that, but that's basically saying if my end user asks, tap into this specific CDS view for the information, get that information out, present it back. So you can fully define that in a low-code, no-code way. If you know SAP build process automation, this way you can define process flows visually just by dragging boxes onto the canvas. Basically, it's the same thing. It's a process automation flow where the trigger is not some database event or a button being pushed, but it's a question that somebody asks to Joule. You can create that for free, extend Joule. Doesn't cost anything. Joule, by the way, is free to begin with in the system. So that's one. But the second thing that you can do, this goes way beyond, is create agents. You can create your custom agents. So I have a video here where I do some warehouse optimization. Just a simple example because people typically get this idea. I have a warehouse, and that warehouse can run out of. Warehouse can run out of stock, of course. So now I'm creating an agent together with Joule, which you see on the left, that will check my stock inventory when I ask it in a specific area. And then when it sees that something is low on stock, it'll create purchase requests in the system. So that's the type of agent that I'm trying to create here. Very simple example. So what you now see happening here, I'm going to pause the video a little bit. On the left side of the screen, here I interact with Joule as a process expert. I know what I want to achieve. I describe what it should do, the agent. Okay, a restocking agent that will check stock, and when it's low, it'll do purchase requests. And this needs to be put into the system in the end. And on the right side, this is not what an end user would see, you see the agent definition being built. So this agent has a specific expertise. You give it its instructions. These instructions get built based on how you describe what you'd like to achieve, get some additional information. And when I scroll ahead a little bit in the video, you can attach toolboxes to this as well via MCP, get into systems, get data out, get data in. Basically, the whole technical stuff going on in the back end, scrolling through that a little bit. And in the end, I'm going to see if I can run it here. I can test deploy this because it's surrounded by an entire suite of DevOps solutions. I can deploy it into the system, check if it works. So here, okay, I've asked Joule, can you check if my inventory is low on specific items? It's found these nice Adidas sneakers, and then it comes up with purchase request in the system. Here on the right side, now you also never see this as an end user, just to show you what happens, the technical details of all the data being pulled out of systems. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. And now you can deploy it into the actual Joule environment. And when you've done so, it'll be in the system and people can start asking these type of questions. Which stock items are low. So really simple example of building an agent, that this can become really complex. So in terms of the things that you can achieve through this. Joule Studio extensibility, yes, fully available. So that was the second pillar. Remember, we did three things. Joule has new UI, embedded cases. I've shown you a few of the embedded cases. I've shown you how you can extend these. And then we also like to work together with our customers to really create industry-specific, domain-specific AI solutions. When we sit down together, go innovate. And we can do that in multiple ways. making sure that things that are not there, that we haven't thought of, but you have, because you run into these day-to-day process problems, we can sit down together with you. And I have a nice example here of an agentic workflow that we've built for another customer, where they had the automatic handling of invoices, incoming invoices, 90% of these invoices being handled by open text in this case, this customer. So, but 10% of the cases, something missing, something wrong with the invoice. PO number missing, that code's not there, you name it, inconsistencies, unreadable. We created an agent system that checks how that basically handles these last 10% of invoices, where we have a PO detective. Okay, a PO number missing, yes. Okay, do we even need a PO number on this specific invoice? Because we might have some other contractual obligation. So it pulls as a PO judge. Then we have, for instance, also tax advisor. If VAT codes are missing, can we add the right VAT code based on the information that we know, etc. And based on this, 90% of the invoices not handled, so from that last 10%, were still being automatically handled, saving for this customer hundreds of hours of work a month. This is a massive customer, but you can imagine the amount of work saved.
Where do we then put the human in there?
This, in the end, did a list of proposals of how to solve it, and then just push the button and solve it. In the end, when you do industry AI, it's your case. You can decide how you want to handle it. You could also build a mechanism here that does risk analysis and based on a low invoice for a good supplier, just make it payable. But that's a risk assessment that you can do. We don't want to do. So when we deliver out of the box cases, it's not on us to decide if something should be automatically booked, right? It's your business. But if you create such a custom case, feel free to do that. Of course, we can do that. Yeah. Right. So these are the 3 pillars. And if you look at this, also, this is a very nice graph. I like this graph from McKinsey. It's like the value chain of AI. These cases, they accelerate a little bit. They bring a little bit of value, but it's not like real value drivers of AI. When you go into the agentic side and the embedded cases, much more efficiency gains, quality gains can be achieved. And then slowly we move towards really the agentic world, where mass optimization and mass hyper automation takes place, really driving value for companies, either in cost saved, less manual labor, for instance, but also in terms of quality gains, direct or indirect. So this is where we're heading, and I think that nicely follows the path that we choose. In terms of, so these are just the cases that we have. I want to go back in the last few minutes to this slide, guys, because in the beginning I said, okay, we have our application landscape. We put AI directly on top of that. All the cases that I've shown you so far, with the exception of the last case, the real custom case that we did, just live in the application landscape itself. No need for an in-between data layer. The last case required bringing together data from multiple sources, and that's where a data harmonization layer is really important. That's where we would position SAP Business Data Cloud as a harmonization layer. Because when you look at AI, this is typically seen as one of the biggest challenges. A lot of that data issues are solved just by putting AI directly in the ERP landscape. Because that's typically, although there are issues, of course, with bad registrations, typically a lot of clean data sits in your ERP system, because that's where you actually run and are accountable for your business. But still, this is an issue, of course. This will not be all companies face data quality issues. All companies face bringing data together. So it's kind of an obstacle. So that's why Business Data Cloud. Business Data Cloud, I cannot discuss in full. It's a massive platform. It's not a product. It's a whole suite of products brought together to do data harmonization. But I want to pick a few that are relevant in the AI space. First one, data products. Data products are curated, out-of-the-box, available data products that we supply and we manage as SAP that are connected to your SAP landscape. They are automatically populated on delta mechanisms, etc., in place here, fueling these data products. There will be multiple layers of data products. So simple data products, maybe just reflecting a business partner table. So the business partner would be a data product, but obviously, and this is a master data example, but also, of course, the transactional data, and we are going to create derived data products on top of that, increasing the value, increasing the information density in these data products, and these data products can then be used in AI scenarios. So instead of you doing all the heavy lifting, getting the data out of the SAP systems, making sure that you build up all the relationships again through ETL tooling, we do that for you. We deliver these data products out of the box, only available on RISE. Sorry. So that's one. We allow you to create custom data products available outside of RISE. Yeah, but that then the push mechanism of data to the data product is gone. But you still have pull mechanisms to get the data in there. The big change here, and that's coming to the next thing that I want to say about the Business Data Cloud. Typically, of course, data was stored in a HANA platform for SAP. In-memory HANA database, HANA on-prem, HANA cloud. We've moved to a different way. So file containers, Delta sharing, Delta Lake storage containers based from Databricks. That's how we store the data now. Much more flexible, and it allows you to do a second thing. You can tap into, with BDC Connect, you can tap into the storage containers directly. So instead of you copying data out, you can take your Databricks instance, or you can take your Snowflake instance, or later on, even your Fabric instance, and directly connect to the storage containers in the Business Data Cloud. So instead of copying all the data out, you just connect to the storage container. I think a mass improvement in terms of not having to replicate all the data out with all the pipelining going on there, all the problems that gives. Again, on the other side, why not leverage the storage containers over here where they live to begin with? It's the whole idea of most of these products on the right side, of course, the decoupling of storage and compute to begin with. So let's tap into the storage that we've created where the data products from the SAP side live to begin with. This also allows you to, you see a Snowflake example here. We also incorporate Snowflake or Databricks inside of Business Data Cloud, where you have a really SAP managed Databricks or Snowflake instance available there as well, if you do not have a outside version of it. So a lot to be said, more to be said on this. I will not go into that. We're not going into the BW modernization topics, etc. So, really important. There is a question.
I can see it's the GRC still, or when for which customer this will be available?
Well, if you have a Business Data Cloud instance, which you can just get, that's not really, Business Data Cloud in itself is not tied to RISE or anything. You can just acquire a Business Data Cloud. When you have that, and you have stuff living on this side, this will become available directly. When it's GA, of course. But yeah, so for Databricks, it's already there. So what happens basically is in Databricks, in the Unity catalog, we publish a data product with the redirection to the actual storage location. And the same thing would go for Polaris in the end for Snowflake, etc. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
How do you see situation handling compared to Joule? Because it seems like Joule is an extended version of the situation handling, and is that properly?
It's a very good question. So obviously, I think Joule compared to situation handling would just be using a new user interface to handle the situation. You, instead of looking on the top right where you have notifications, you'll just ask Joule which situations are there for me today. For instance, you just pull them up. I think the next phase would be the agentic side of things, where a lot of these situations are not just presented as a situation to you, but already are accompanied by a proposal for a solution. And I think that's where it's heading. So is the situation handling in itself is not going to go away. It's just going to have a different way of working with it, I would say. Pulling up the information versus when you build agentic scenarios on top of that, really making sure that you do not have to do the heavy lifting in terms of finding out why there's a situation to begin with. Because typically it says, yeah, there's an issue with a specific asset. Some maintenance needs to be done, or there's an invoice overdue or at risk of becoming overdue. Does that give you a suggestion? Coming back to the accounts receivable agent running. Does that answer the question? Well, let's elaborate. More questions. Can we have 1 minute left? You had a question all along, right? Yeah.
So a lot of customers in SAP are still on premise and don't plan to go on cloud too soon. Do you have any plans to help those customers to provide some functionality for them as well, or they're on their own with AI?
No, they're not on their own with AI. First, there's a few things. I think I already mentioned a little bit of Joule, right? I don't see Joule coming available on premise anytime soon. But what you see a lot, of course, is customers indeed having a journey over time where one of their systems gets migrated to a RISE system, and others remain on-prem. As long as you have, let's say, part of your system in RISE, we allow you through the extensibility, the Joule Studio, we allow you to tap into basically any data, but you need to have a deployment platform, I would say, for Joule to live in, so that you can start to leverage the out-of-the-box capabilities over there in the cloud system, and then for circumstances where you want to pull some information from an on-premise system directly or through Business Data Cloud, for instance, yes, we will allow you to do that, and we have mechanisms for that. I would say yes. Focus is the cloud. Let's be honest here.
Question also about Joule. Joule for consultants based on messages and messages based on the IT units. Is it a mechanism to monitor costs and to limit budget?
Yes, there is a good question here. I did never include commercials here, but we can talk about it, of course. So about half Joule in itself, and about half of the embedded cases that we have here are just free, meaning they are part of the solution licenses. You can just activate them in the system. The other half, and these are typically the more high value ones in terms of driving efficiency, etc., are what we call premium AI. They get consumed via virtual credits called AI units. And what we've done in terms of keeping the cost under control, because there's always the question, how much is AI going to cost us? We've bundled embedded features and also Joule for Consultants into packages, which you get for a flat fee per user per month.
But
so that's one.
Will it be limited? That like I can set that no more than this amount of units the user can use.
So it's to begin with, if you start using these features, you get it for a flat fee and a fair use policy. But basically, you can use it unlimited in the month. Unless you really start to exceed the number of requests as you do, if you are like doing thousands of requests a day, maybe, there is a fair use limit. And when you reach that, there is a mechanism to monitor that to begin with in SOC for Me, answering your second question. So in SOC for Me, you can activate, let's say I'm going to activate you on a specific package of AI features. And then for that flat fee a month, you have access to all these features. And then we can monitor how much people we've added to such a feature package and how much AI units we're consuming. Again, flat fee. So we're not going to have overage to begin with.
One more about extensibility. Embedded Joule, for example, for Concours, can be extended with other open processes? Because I don't want answering questions based on standard processes.
Yeah, you can.
Via Joule Studio as well.
Via Joule Studio, yes.
Same for Joule for Consultants.
Yes. Sorry, Joule for Consultants is not extendable. It's basically a SaaS version. It also runs standalone. Joule for Consultants is also, by the way, available because it's a standalone Joule version that just runs in your browser. Also, if you're not on RISE, you can start using that. And you can ask it questions on S4, on-prem, on ECC, on Concur, you name it. So
But only within the standard processes.
that is still within the standard process. There is, and this is asterisk, don't quote me on this. This is not a roadmap statement. We will be using grounding in Joule for Consultants as well, where you can start to upload your own documents and extend Joule for Consultants also with, let's say, booking specific information.
And when it's planned in the roadmap.
I will check.
If you have more questions for Niels, you can buy him a coffee or tea and then he will answer.
Bye.
I have one question. How
Yes.
this is calculated? One, you send a message and you get a response of one message or two messages.
First off, when you ask a request, is a message is a question answer pair.
Niels, thank you very much.
Yeah. Jan, by the way, and together with Jan, you're doing fun stuff later on, right? With the podcast. You're going to record me in a podcast. Oh, what they were going to be in the podcast. Okay, good. So if you have any questions, I'll be over there. But time's up, and busy. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I saw just this one here. Just this one because they're going to use this one here. Yeah. Hash. Hi, Shazar. Hi, Shazar. Hi, Shazar.
Hi, Cesar. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you.
Good then. Okay.
So, hey everyone, I'm Shazir Anis and I'm working at the SAP developer and Booking.com for the last 2 years. And before I start, here is a quick update from my side. So due to the recent situation, our Bangalore team was not able to make it in person. So they will be handing over they will be conducting session remotely. So once I start, then I will hand over the session to them. So let's get started. So SAP AI use cases.com. So in Booking.com, we are working on various AI use cases that I think Robert and they already explained. But today we are going to focus on one of the most impactful and important use cases that actually improves the efficiency, accuracy, and the partner experience as part of SAP. So these are the use cases that we will going to discuss as part of this session. These are payment, GenAI chat, agent, native payment investigation. Some are related to allocations, and some are financial processes intelligently. Some are DRC compliance efficiently. So I will start with first thing, payment GenAI agent. So with this, we will explain how we actually leveraging GenAI to explain and answer one of the most important question as part of financial operation, and also, if I'm not wrong, it's one of the most important question in fintech. And the question is, why are the payments pending? Why bank rejected the payments? These are the questions, sound small, but it dominates the whole for financial operation and also who are working on this. With this, we will also explain like how we are using AI to resolve these issues. These questions, quite time consuming, reduces the efficiency and also impact the partner experience. So before going into the solution, let's go into the problem statement and deep dive. As a SAP payments team, we process 1,000 of payments on a daily basis, straight out to the partner accounts. But most of the payments process successfully, but some payment, fails and get delayed. So with this, we have a dedicated team of experts who are working to solve these issues. But with this, it's time consuming. It requires most of the payments are repetitive in nature. It's and requires a manual investigation. And that requires a SAP lookups, changing some logs, tracing SLG logs. It really time consuming and impact our efficiency and also the other factors. For this, we that not only creates the operational bottleneck because our senior experts, working on these to resolve the issue, and instead of working on the high value or strategic work, they are focusing on these first line triage questions. On top of it, it also create the inconsistent information because we are dealing with all these queries with different channels, Slack, email, and all this. When this payment fails and creates a lot of operational queries. If you see the screenshot, there is an example that how we actually dealing with these. One of the payout user, share the payment, and then it says that, okay, this payment is being stuck, and then from our side it's multiple handoff, the time delays and all, with only one single payment query. So the challenge here is how we actually solve this to enable fast response with efficiency and without overloading our partner, without overloading our experts. So here I introducing the GenAI payment agent, which is itself real-time explainable and also the integrated. What it does is actually it understands the natural language. It understands related to the payment and payout questions. With the intent recognition using LLM Gemini 2.0, we are identify the intent of the message and extract the key parameters for the user question. It fetches the real-time information straight from SAP, like payment status, reason, next step action, with the context directly from SAP. It not only gives you the information with context, it gives you the clear and structured response with consistent responses with traceable evidence. That actually, at the end of the time, improving the partner experience and removing some reconciliation gaps. So if we talk about the kind of MVP phase and some sort of like how we are actually dealing with the top 3 pain points. To make it practical from the start, we are focusing on 3 pain points to deliver the immediate value. And the first, the question we are dealing and focusing is pending payments that is related to mainly on the SAP sides. Some question related to the master data, blockers, and all these that happening inside SAP. And the second one, mainly we are covering for the bank processing delays, dealing with the external brokers from the bank side, some payment having some delays. So it gives you the real-time insight from the bank related thing. And the third one is also post-confirmation rejection that also deal from the, sometime we get the acceptance and right away we get the rejection when we have a bank statement. So it gives you the provide real-time instant for these sort of post confirmation rejection. From after that, after MVP, we have a plan to scale it up for the rest of the edge cases and use cases to make it more impactful. And also we have a plan to scale it up with the other areas of fintech. So let's check how we are doing with behind the doors. So with the process flow diagram, SAP will remain the source of truth or system of record. And we are using AI layer as the orchestrator and reasoning layer on top of SAP. And as an integration layer, we deployed MCP server on middleware. That is a standard way of connecting data sources and also ensures the API handling all these things. So when, for example, when a user asks a question, any payment related queries, it straight away picked up our bot, we call Slack bot, and then the message will send to the AI layer. And with the help of LLM Gemini, it gives you the context of user question, extract the necessary parameters. And after all these flow, MCP client actually calls MCP server, where it perform or ensures the necessary checks, API exposure, security, and all the standard checks. And the call goes to the SAP APIs, where our business logic executed and gets a response in a right away with a real time. And again, it will couple with LLM Gemini to convert the response in human readable language as a business friendly language. And the same response is sent back to the user with a Slack channel. All this life cycle not taking more than 5 to 6 seconds per query. That is a major impact that we, in manual way, we on every basis, our user, if we don't have any capacity issues, we will take more than 15 to 20 minutes. So we recorded a small demo. So let's how it's actually doing in practical. So again, it's old way, a current way of working. There is a multiple handoff and all the delays we are having. It's just we added as a comparison. So we will show you how we deployed this bot on a Slack channel. This is the FS payment chat agent that we call it. If you see the user, call the bot, we call it Nexus, and wanted to check what is the scope of this bot, what it can do. So within second, it will reply you with all the information on what it can do. If you see, it's only get the information from the payment bank and settlement rate information that we are controlling by the efficient prompt engineering to restrict our bot to enable only information that we required, not just to avoid any sort of hallucination. Again, user want to check the payment status. If you see, but user deliberately missed the transaction ID that is required to call the flow. The bot return, please provide a UID, just to make it validate that the user has to call the UID to make the right API call. Otherwise, bot will not hallucinate. And the third query, user asks a question with the valid UID. They are also checking the authentication and validation of UID. You see, so it replies with the proper context straight from the SAP grounded information is out with the business friendly language. It is his account is locked for payment, reason payment done, and there are some related information, and it gives you the LLM coupled information that gives you the right context of what needs to be done and what are the next steps. And it also supports the multiple queries you see. Not only added one query, it's a multiple user queries being added, and within seconds the information is out. Yeah.
So this tool is an internal tool only enabled on Slack, right?
Yeah, basically we have with AI Studio, we build some sort of a Slack integration with our AI Studio. And when you have a Slack bot, you need to call the AI flow straight from the Slack.
Okay, and can be enabled on other kind of communication service, for example, on Teams?
Right now, yeah, we can talk with the AI Studio team because I was working with them, and maybe if there is some sort of a use cases, we can work on demand.
And what FS stands for?
Financial system.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my bad. Okay. So in next question, you were all the bot again with the different set of questions related to the bank status. Now the call uniquely identify the UID and the intent of the message, and it will call the right endpoint related to the bank status, not the payment status. And if the content of message is different, we are having a paying status. I think the alignment is out. So sorry. So let's talk about numbers and the metrics and the value proposition. The numbers we are expecting and the manual queries, we are expecting the reduction of 30 to 40% of manual query handling. That returns result in the reduced operational load and free up a lot of our work on high strategic other than focusing on the first line triage. And the time saving you have already seen in the demo that how much is real time rather than manual way of working. We are expecting more than 80 to 85% faster response with the major game changer is it actually supports the UIDs per query. And the last but not the least, that the fewer reconciliation gap when we avoiding the delayed payment, and it actually have an impact on the positive impact on the partner experiences, and the partner balances are also align and reconcile and closing the accounting gaps. And also the information is consistent with all over the channels, so user can also get utilize the previous information because it's a data backed and client information getting out from the SAP. So it's a way of finding the information and again. So with this, I am closing this. And if you have any question, you can always ask at the end of the session. So I will be handing over my session to my colleague Rajesh, who has some important or interesting case to discuss. Hey Rajesh, are you audible? Hey Rajesh, hello. Are you hearing me?
Siddharth, can you hear us now?
Hand over to you, Rajesh.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Siddharth. Hello, everyone. This is Rajesh Kurapati from Booking Financial System, SAP Order to Cash as a senior FICA consultant. So here we are coming up one of the use case with respect to OpenAR. It's a smart account receivable AI assistant, which helps our account receivables team to allocate their payments, which came through the bank statement. So this is specifically built with respect to account receivables or incoming payments coming through a bank transfer. So it's a Fury-based application where users can identify the unknown payments with respect to the payments came through the bank transfer. If we go to the next slide, we'll go through a problem statement. So what we are trying to solve with this particular AI use case and how it is helping our users. So with respect to the problem statement, for all the bank transfers which are coming through into the system, near to 3% of our incoming payment through a bank transfer or 700K or 7K monthly transactions are going into unknown payments. Yeah, which is using near to 7K hours of our users to identify these particular payments and allocate it to a specific partner, which is taking time consuming and manual efforts. Yeah. So with respect to this, if you have a look, every month it is taking near to 480 hours of AR's team efforts to identify these particular payments and allocate to a partner. And with respect to SLAs, so currently we have 24 hours of SLAs where we need to allocate the payment once it came through a bank statement, which should not cause our partner experience. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide. So if I have a look of this particular AI app in SAP, as I mentioned before, it's a Fury-based application where SAP pulls the information from bank statement where SAP is not able to allocate this particular payments to a specific partner based on the rules defined. So it identifies a right partner and allocate this particular payment to a specific partner's account. Yeah. So it will not post directly to a partner's account, but it needs a human intervention. So initially, before this particular app was built, it was taking near to 5 minutes to allocate this particular payment for each transaction. So where user needs to navigate into multiple systems from where we got this particular payment, or with the help of our CS team to identify where the payment came from, or different tools needs to be integrated or validated to allocate the payments. So currently it reduced from 5 minutes to a few seconds with respect to that. Here we have used GPT-4 to replace multiple applications where AI fetches a node to payee information and identifies a unique name with respect to that particular payment reference. So every payment has a reference details where AI utilizes to read the payment reference and identify a person name or a hotel name from where this particular payment came through. Yeah, and it can be allocated to that particular specific partner from where we got this particular payment to. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide, we can see the architectural diagram, how and what we do exactly. So if you have a look on the left side, it's an as-is what SAP provides. So where partner does the payment through a bank transfer, and that deposits to our CMA account. So bank transmits a file on daily basis from where we got the payment through. Yeah. So SAP reads this particular file and tries to identify from where we got the payment, if the standard programs or the rules which was defined underneath the bank statement programs, it allocates that particular payment to a specific partner. Yeah. So if in case, if it was not able to identify the payment, it sits in a clarification queue or as an unknown payment or unidentified payment. So where our OpenAR comes into the picture to identify all these unknown payments or unallocated payments and fetches out that particular information and sends out the node to payee information to AI. So that's where you can see on the right side, which is highlighted as OpenAR. That's the one which was built where it collects the node to payee information and send it to AI. And this particular node to payee information will be read, or payment reference will be read by AI and respond back to SAP with a hotel name or a person name. We have integrated this through MuleSoft and as a OData call, so where we send the node to payee and get the response back in a sequence manner. Yeah. So once hotel name was identified or the person name was identified, so where it can fetch the historical payments based on this particular hotel name or a person name and allocate this particular payment to a specific business partner, which is a hotel in our view. So, or allocate to a specific GL with respect to that. And we can post this particular transactions to that particular partner. So that's how the architecture looks. Yeah. If we go to the next slide, there you can see a demo how we are allocating this particular payment. Yeah. So on an OpenAI app, business user can fetch or pass a bank account details and identify from past payments what all unknown payments are there in the system. So you can see the list of unknown payments and the status of that particular payment. Yeah. So here in this particular use case where partner has did the payment and allocated. So this particular payment was not posted anywhere. So we use a note to payee and using that AI fetch button, we passed this information and got a response back as a hotel name from AI. Yeah. So we use a bank statement search where we look at our historical payments with respect to that particular partner. So using the hotel name, we identified one of the similar case and one of the business partner that can be allocated to. And we did a amount search as well with respect to what is the total invoice amounts which can be matched for this particular payment, and where we fetch all the associated open invoices with respect to that amount search. So here, this one of the manual intervention which is required by the user that can be looked upon, and where user can allocate this particular payment with respect to that. If I have a look, the status is new now. When the business user passes this particular partner ID, which was identified over here from the historical payments, and the status gets changed and it gets posted onto a partner's account. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide, what are the benefits that I'm getting with respect to this particular AI use case, or is like with respect to this particular Fury app, which is fetched based on the note to payee? Yeah. Timely allocation, which reduces our partner suspension. So where we need to allocate the payments on time to a specific partner, even though if we don't have a proper reference, as most of the MT 940 bank statement file formats in case of unstructured format, which I can identify using the help of AI to allocate this particular payment. Yeah. So efficiency, where it reduces manual efforts for us and identify the right business partner from our historical payments or from our master data or from our open invoices with respect to the hotel name, reading the note to payee, and with respect to the hotel or person name which was provided by the users. Yeah. Enhance our collection rates or improves our collection efficiency, and allocate the partner, improves the partner experience, allocate the payment on time with respect to that particular payment. Yeah. So, and precise identification, accuracy of identifying the business partner and trying to match with the invoice amount and allocate these particular payments to a specific partners. So this is how it is sufficing our business users are reducing the time to allocate the payments and get it processed on time. Yeah. So if we move to the next slide, we have another new AI use case, which I'm going to hand over to Priyanka to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Hi, everyone. I am Priyanka Singla, and I'm working as a SAP developer in Booking. Today, I'm excited to present a solution that moves us beyond manual data entry and into what we call intelligent financial orchestration. We aren't just automating a task. We are using SAP AI to bridge the gap between unstructured documents and ERP integrity. In the next slide, let's try to understand the problem statement. So at the month end, the user runs a report that provides him with a list of documents posted in SAP. For each document, he extracts the PDF invoice form attached to it. He also gets the ledger Excel file. He manually reconciles the data between the three sources, and if any variance is found, e-posts, and accrual entry. So as we can see that our month-end process suffers from three major bottlenecks. The first is information silos, where the critical data is trapped at three different locations. Second is the reconciliation burden. Humans are manually summing hundreds of line items to match single invoices. And third is posting inefficiencies that can lead to delayed accruals and month-end closing risks. So, in short, our experts are spending more time on data entry instead of data analytics. Now, let's see how we propose a solution to this problem. So, here's the fix. We have built a three-way reconciliation engine powered by SAP Build Process Automation. Think of BPA in three parts. We use the build aspect for this no-code visual flow. The process aspect manages the data moving between our sources, and the automation aspect uses desktop bots to grab files and actions calls to our SAP APIs. Here, as you can see, first the SAP document AI reads the PDF to extract the hidden details. Next, the system triggers an API call to S4HANA for live financial records, and then pulls the logistics tracker from the Excel. Finally, our custom JavaScript performs smart validation. It mathematically verifies if hundreds of Excel rows match a single PDF in milliseconds. If it does not match, the system flags it for review and sends a notification using SAP Build Workflow. So what we have achieved is exceptional management. Now, let's try to understand the brain of our operation in the next slide. So the brain behind all this is Document AI. What is Document AI? It is an intelligent solution that uses machine learning and generative AI to handle the full document lifecycle. It extracts, validates, and classifies the data. Here, we have moved beyond the legacy OCR, which sees the text and breaks if the logo moves. We are using SAP document information extraction, which actually understands the context of the invoice. It knows the difference between the billing address and the shipping address, regardless of the layout of the form. It uses generative AI prompts to find complex data from the forms. It isn't a standalone tool. It offers direct integration to SAP business objects and seamless integration with S4HANA. Here, the AI gets smarter. It uses the feedback loop to increase its confidence scores. And the best part is, it's not just for PDFs. It extracts data from Excel's, Word, emails, and even images. It uses and processes the standard documents out of the box and uses generative AI prompts for complex custom business documents. Now, let's try to understand in the next slide that how this document AI works. So, we use SAP AI Core to perform multi-model orchestration. Multi-model orchestration, what it means? That instead of being locked to one model, the system intelligently selects the best large language model, like GPT, Gemini, based on how complex the document is. While the standard users let SAP choose, developers can manually override this via the generative AI hub to use a specific model of their choice. It also uses multi-model reasoning, where instead of just reading a list of words, the AI looks at the document like a human does. Most important, to ensure that the data is reliable, for SAP financial posting, we have an accuracy and trust layer. We use context grounding, RAG, which makes sure the AI doesn't make things up. It stays 100% focused on the document, which eliminates hallucinations and ensures every field extracted is factual. All of this happens behind a gatekeeper of enterprise governance, meaning our sensitive financial data is never used to train public AI models. The final piece and the important piece is the feedback loop. The AI uses confidence logic, log props, to measure its own certainty. If AI is unsure, it triggers a human in the loop review via a Fury validation UI. When a human makes a correction, the system uses instant learning and few shot prompting to adapt immediately. So it never makes the same mistake again. Now let's move to the demo. Now in the demo, let's first see.
The question.
I have a question.
Sure.
If we go back to the slide about the governance, is there any kind of anonymization technique or data masking technique are we using since we are working now with sensitive data?
Actually, everything is happening in the SAP AI core, so our all data is safe. SAP AI core takes care of all the important information and it's not getting used. So currently there is no masking happening here. So now in the demo, let's first see how Document AI helps us to extract the information from the invoice PDF form. This is a sample invoice form. In this form, the standard fields like document date, sender details, etc. automatically get extracted and mapped to the schema fields on the right. We create a custom schema and define custom logic to extract line item details for non-standard fields like the batch ID, date range, etc. And these also get mapped to the custom fields. Based on the extraction results, we get the extraction confidence range. If AI misses to predict any field or extraction confidence is low, we can edit and map it manually and press confirm. AI now automatically remembers this. Example, in a custom schema here, we give clear prompts that how we want the fields to be extracted. We have given an AI prompt that every line starting with batch is a mandatory unique row. For each row, extract the batch ID, date range, amount, etc. We can also define the AI prompts for each field individually. Like for batch ID, we have given that extract the numeric ID immediately following the word batch. Now let's understand the end-to-end flow. This is the build process that has multiple steps that need to be executed as a part of this demo. The first step extracts the PDF details using Document AI based on the custom schema. The second step uses Cloud Link to automatically extract the Excel data. The third step is a GET API call to extract the table data. We have a script task to handle the complex reconciliation. Here is a condition to check whether the reconciliation is a success or not. Based on the results, a workflow notification gets sent to the users with mismatched details. This process is triggered using a background job and is run using SAP Desktop Agent. We can view the logs of each step in monitoring and view the parameter values. Once the process completes, we receive notification in my inbox. It shows the failed and passed results. We can also take the action by clicking on the buttons whether to approve it or not. Now, finally, let's look at the impact we have achieved so far. So first is the extraction accuracy. With an accuracy rate of over 95%, we eliminate the audit risk of manually typing and ensure our SAP financial postings are 100% reliable. Processing time. Here the results are instant. We have slashed the processing time from hours to under 30 seconds per document. Talking about the STP rate, this flow is how we achieve operational excellence. We have moved from manual data entry to a zero-touch model. By using Gen AI, we reach an automation rate of up to 90%, allowing the system to handle the routine while our team handles only the exceptions. The review time. Even when there's an error, our human in the loop validation takes less than 5 minutes. This ensures a faster, stress-free month-end closing. So altogether, we aren't just saving time. We are using Gen AI to ensure total financial integrity at scale. Thank you. Now I will hand it over to my colleague Karthik, who will present another interesting topic.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
In the document AI part, do the invoices that you deal with, do they always have a fixed standard template, or it can be multiple different invoice formats, tables, rows, borders, etc.? And then second, does it have multi-language translation support also, or all the invoices are always in English?
So to answer your question, in the demo that I presented, the invoice form that I used was in French language. It was not in English. So yes, the document does not have to be in English always, the form or anything. And also the second question regarding the custom form types. Yes, we can have any custom form types. We can have a form wherein it is handwritten something, or the layout changes, or like if let's say you have a scenario wherein you receive another form in which the format of the fields or the font of the field is completely different. So all this is taken care of by Gen AI. So based on the complexity of the document, it actually selects the underlying model. And also if let's say we feel that, okay, document AI could not find the value of a particular field, once if we go there and we manually confirm the field, like let's say there's a purchase order number which it is unable to identify, we can manually map it to the purchase order number field, and then for the next instance whenever some kind of document comes, it will remember it. And to cater to all the custom fields in our document, we can create a custom schema and do the mapping and give the prompts to extract the values. Does this answer your question?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karthik, SAP Senior Developer at Booking.com. It's a privilege to be here with you today at Booking.com. Our mission has always been to make it easier for everyone to experience the world. To make it happen, it requires a foundation of trust and uncompromising security. For quite some time, we have looked at how we can move AI from just being a cool feature to integrate into the complex challenges in our infrastructure. Today, I'm excited to talk about how we are leveraging Gen AI in solving a high-stake challenge, that is firefighter log summarization. We aren't just automating the process. We are leveraging the technology to give our tech and complaints team the most valuable resources of all, that is the time back. With this context, let's jump into the session. Yeah, before we look into the solution, let's try to understand the pain point. Okay, as many of us know what the firefighter access is about. It provides an emergency access as well as the elevator access. It also generates a tremendous amount of logs, as in like these logs are categorized into the transaction logs, audit logs, change logs, and so on and so forth. All these logs are technical in nature, which means they are cryptic and do not translate to business intent. It also leads to the complaints fatigue, which means the controllers or the reviewers are often forced to approve the sessions they do not really without understanding the real intent of it. It also leads to the manual inconsistency, which is making it difficult to maintain the highest standard of scrutiny. And we also found like the controllers are often spending 7 to 10 minutes per effort session on a routine task. So this is a high operational cost for a task that should be more proactive than just being a checkbox, right? Next slide, please. So here is a solution. So we moved our strategy towards the intelligent review. So what we are doing is, as I told you that, so there are different categories of logs that are generated as part of the firefighter session.
So we are extracting these logs from the SAP system and then pushing it to the LLM and then converting it to the natural language or human readable context. We are also using the LLM to go beyond the keyword matching to actually read the technical intent of a session itself. And the real game changer here is the anomaly detection. So the system flags the risks, and which means the reviewers can spend more time on the risks instead of they are hunting for the risk itself, which gives an efficiency boost for the reviewers, and then focus more towards the issue itself. And how we are identifying the risks is if there are any additional transactions that are being performed which are not supposed to be a part of the original intent of the sessions are classified as risk. And if there are any highly sensitive transactions debugging or modifying, change access to the debugging or whatever, or table updates or something, these are the highly sensitive transactions. Those are by default classified as risky transactions, and they are classified as an exceptions. Next slide, please. Let's have a quick demo. This is a typical screen where the reviewers will try to approve the firefighter session. And this is a very simple scenario that we have taken to deactivate an SICF service using the transaction code, the SICF. Yeah. For this particular session performed by the user, we can see, 3 lines of, the technical logs. Since this is a very simple transaction, you got only 3 lines of log. This is not the typical production scenario. And yeah, you can pass here. So for the technical logs that you have seen before, and in this note section is where we are focusing more. This is a natural language, the summarization generated using the Gen AI. So if you look at the section itself, we have classified into several headers. The analysis summary. Within analysis summary, we have actions performed. These actions performed are nothing but the transaction code that is being executed by this firefighter session itself. The user have logged into the firefighter user ID, and they have executed SICF transaction, and along with multiple different activities as well. And which has actually been converted from the technical logs into the natural language content itself. On top of that, as I told you before, we also have the exceptions headers. This is where all the anomalies or the risky transactions are captured, allowing the reviewers to focus more on the exceptions itself. On top of this, so we are not limiting our solution just for the summarization. So we are also getting the feedback from the reviewers, right? Maybe Shazad, you can just go a bit back. We are also getting the feedback from the reviewers to see whether the summarizations are intact, whether they're finding any mismatch between the logs generated and the technical logs itself. The reason why we are getting is to improvise our solution, to improvise our prompts itself. This is the human loop strategy that we are following it for our solution. Yeah. Let's go on to the next slide. This is a typical architecture, as we all know. So most of the firefighter logs or sessions are being carried out in the satellite systems, that is SAP S/4HANA, ECC, and Gateway. Once the sessions are completed, so we have the standard SAP jobs that have been provided. Those are the sync jobs that will extract these logs from the satellite system to the GRC system. This is a standard process. And what we are doing is in the step 2, we have created a custom program to extract or fetch all these technical logs and prepare the payload in such a way that is aligned with our Gen AI Gateway platform. This Gen AI Gateway is our booking standard. We have our own gateway to access our LLM. And then all these logs are being pushed to the LLM, and then the technical logs are converted into the human readable context. and then it will be uploaded back to the firefighter log instances itself. So
those logs are
Next
coming
slide,
from.
Karthik, there is a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, those logs
Yes,
are
please.
coming. Those logs are coming from SAP system, so I can see here as for HANA SSC, so it's not a cloud system, and the Gen AI. So these models are not posted on the Gen AI hub; they are standalone model. Are we talking about? So we are feeding the LLM models the logs from different SAP system, regardless of, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and then where is the deployment happened of the results of these models?
Come again? I mean, your voice is not clear. Can you just come closer?
Yeah, where should I come to? The deployment of this model. Can you just walk me through the process? Like after we feed this model the logs, where the deployment happened, so the user can get this.
Okay. So what will happen here is, since we have the GRC system as a central system, that is our central system, and wherever the firefighter that are being performed is in the satellite system. So all the logs will be synchronized to our central system. That is a step one. So this is the GRC system is where the natural language context, like whatever that has been converted from the technical to the human readable context, will be uploaded here in the GRC only. So even if you bring in a different system in future of the cloud system, it will have to be integrated to the GRC system only. So even if you perform a firefighter in the cloud system as well, that log will be synchronized to this GRC system. So by default, your logs will be picked from the GRC system. From the GRC system, the call to LLM will happen, and then the human readable context gets updated in the GRC. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So scaling beyond summarization. So we initially started our solution just the summarization task to enable the reviewers with the human readable context. So we not want to limit our solution just with the summarization. We are in the phase of assisted automation, as in like our focus is towards the automated approval process for the firefighter approval process itself. So what we are currently doing is we have taken the low risk firefighter, we call it as level 1 firefighters, and we have taken it for the evaluation process, that is auto approval in the observation mode, which means as you have seen before, along with the summarization, we are also asking the GenAI to evaluate these logs and come up with a decision itself, whether this can be approved or not. So once the GenAI generates this decision, so still in this observation mode, the approval is going to be manual, will be done by the human, but the task for the approvers are like to provide a feedback about the GenAI decision itself, whether the GenAI decision is correct or like it's incorrect. So what we are also doing is, this is where our evaluation strategy for this particular solution is. We are collecting the data. We are taking, 3 to 4 months for each and every scenario. We are collecting a huge amount of data, and we are trying to plot this data against 4 quadrants. So this is called as a confusion matrix, like true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. So we are trying to see if any of the cases falls under the false positive, which is a very critical scenario, because any logs that is supposed to be rejected is approved by AI, because it's a very risky thing, right? So far we have not found any such scenarios falling under the false positive. We find like quite a lot of scenarios and false negative, which is good, which is a scope for improvising our prompts. And we also found the true positive and true negative cases as well. Sorry, true positive and true negative cases as well. So for now, we have not found any false positive scenarios. So this is our approach towards the automation. So once we are finalized and once our evaluation is successful, we will enable or we move towards complete automation for the low risk firefighters. Yeah, next slide. So the operation excellence through GenAI. So far, we have summarized more than 1,000 plus firefighter sessions. And coming to the time savings, so this is the feedback we got from our controllers, our reviewers. So, earlier 7 to 10 minutes for the manual review, 2 to 3 minutes of AI-assisted summaries. And complaints quality, as you have seen, right? So we already have an exception category in our summary itself, which flags all the risky transactions. So it provides a 100% intelligent coverage. Next slide, please. So the lessons learned. This lesson learned is across all our AI use cases. So privacy first approach. Our approach to any of the GenAI solution is based on the privacy first framework. We are leveraging our guardrail services to ensure our PII and SPI data are, safeguarded. We are not exposing any data. And we have a dedicated session, wherein my colleague Mayank Jain will be presenting a topic on technical debt management in GenAI tomorrow. So where he will be, providing a deep dive into the specific of the guardrails and how we are ensuring our privacy or the data security is taken care. And coming to the active accuracy monitoring, as I told you before, so we have implemented a complete strategy around how to evaluate our solution on the GenAI itself. We are having the human loop feedback for each and every solution. And we are also improvising the prompts and also the model itself, if there is a possibility. And precision through prompting techniques. So a proper structured prompting means it's a high standard of accuracy that we are going to achieve. As we all know, not all the scenario fits for all the cases. So for a few cases, a zero-shot prompting may fit. For a few cases, like a chain of thought may, fit. So it's all about the use cases. We have to play around with the different prompting techniques. And finally, on the model selection strategy. So model selection strategy also follows how we have following for the precision in the prompting technique. So it's not always the same. For the firefighter scenario, we are leveraging the cloud sonnet, but for rest of the scenario, we are leveraging the Gemini or GPT-4, and it's always not heavyweight models are perform better. For some scenarios, for real-time scenarios, we also need to choose the lightweight models to get a better performance and efficiency. And next slide, please. So here are the key contributors: Rajesh from FICA team, and Shazad from payments team, Priyanka from R2R, and Karthik myself from innovations team. Yeah. Opening the forum for Q&A.
If you have any question, to ask.
So I understand for the financial reconciliation, actually, first of all, amazing use cases. For the financial reconciliation, you're using AI code. But for the other three use cases, OpenAR, Smart Receivables, and the GenAI Financial Agent and the Firefighter, what AI platform are you using? I know the model Claude and you are.
So for all of these, we are using GenAI Gateway, right?
All GenAI Hub.
Yeah.
All through SAP BTP GenAI Hub.
Not BTP. So for booking, we have internal SAP Gateway that connects SAP the outside LLM models, right? So we have some SDK, standard development kit that we develop as part of booking.com.
Okay. And you connecting to SAP via MCP server?
Yeah. So exactly. So we have a middleware MuleSoft where we deployed our MCP server, and from the AI Studio line flows. So by using MCP client, we are calling the MCP server.
That's your basic, let's say, architecture framework. And any issues you have first, you guys are functional developers, right? Functional experts on cost, keeping the cost low, because that's the tricky
I
part.
think that's the question from the procurement, right? So right now we are in a deployment phase of MCP. So this GenAI chatbot is one of the first case that we are having with MCP server. Previously, we haven't witnessed this with MuleSoft. So probably once we move forward, then we will get to know more about the cost.
For how long have you those activities or those processes active in your productive environment? So how long are you running that?
So most of the use cases are still in kind of MVP phase, right?
Okay.
And I think one of the use case already it's been deployed like
For
4-5 years.
firefighter, it's almost like 8 to 10 months enabled.
Even for OpenAI, it's been near to 5 months.
Yeah, for OpenAI, it's almost 5 to 6 months. I mean, the first use case that we deployed is the firefighter summarization in SAP. It's close to 10 months, 10 to 11 months.
And maybe a second question, had you any challenges in keeping those things running in a productive environment? So what was the hardest challenge, toughest challenge you had?
I think for me, it's the hardest challenge. It's not efficient that you have to select the LLM model, like maybe the fastest or the newest one. It totally depends on your use case, how you actually select your data model or LLM on the basis of a use. Mayank is actually some kind of a brain behind the MCP.
I'm not the brain. The LLM is still the brain, but yeah, I've had the team. So there was a couple of questions related to cost, right? There's gonna be a session tomorrow where we go a bit deeper on the technical aspect of it, but at a very high level. So whenever we put things in production, right, we also have like a detailed observability layer in AI solutions. So that observability also talks about the cost, like how many tokens did we consume over what period of time did we consume those tokens, and and like also the segregation between different models. So so Gateway is basically the meat of all our GenAI solutions. So it's a central place where we hook in all the AI models, and that gives the visibility to us to be able to answer all these questions.
Yeah, I have one question. You have deployed this MCP on a server. And then you have a list of APIs probably that you have used endpoints, and then how is the authorization handled from a user perspective? Because as I saw that the bot is actually calling the MCP, right? So as an OData service, you will have the different authorizations to call different services. How did you manage that?
That's a very good question and a very deep question. So there are multiple ways of handling it. So first of all, what we do is like restrict the number of actions that we do in the MCP server. So let's take the example of payments bot, like the financial system payments bot. The use case only required us to have 3 main actions to be able to answer the user query. So the bank status, the settlement status, and the payment status, right? So first layer of defense is, of course, like we limited the number of actions that can be done with the MCP. So like we are not giving MCP access to the, like say, change any payment status or do any write or do any delete.
You get calls up.
Yeah, so that's one level of defense. Second level of defense is, of course, the prompt engineering aspect of it. In all the prompts, like we have engineered and tested it in a way that it does not like hallucinate, it does not like stray away from the original task that we have at hand. And for the authorization, so as Shazar mentioned, right, the MCP server basically talks to SAP. So basically we have a middleware that's MuleSoft, which talks to SAP, and then on MuleSoft we can apply policies on what should be the rates, what should be the rate limits, how the authorization works. And so there's a technical user between the SAP server and the MuleSoft user, which basically dictates this authentication aspect of it. But in future, we can expand it to like
OAuth model as well. So we can add scopes, we can like propagate the identity from one service to another, and then we can basically do an inference on those entities and see how it needs to be whether we need to respond it or not. So we are still in the early stages. Of course, we are already seeing a lot of value, but we also have like a lot of plans to improve the security. But we already have a lot of guardrails in place. Tomorrow there's also gonna be a session. We're gonna go a bit level deeper on the guardrails aspect of it, then a gateway aspect of it.
I have one more follow-up question, sorry.
The lunch break.
Oh, so maybe I can talk to you.
Last question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you do the lunch break?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Zeg je altijd hier naartoe?
Alleen vanuit zo krijgen. Je erin kreeg en dat soort dingen. Dus ik heb nog geen cycle. Altijd een webcycle. Smartphone. En daarvoor had je subscript. Ik begon meer dan subscript. Dus daar mocht je eigenlijk al niet meer voor. Als mijn content section ook, die wordt nog steeds gebruikt. Subscript, denk ik. Dat niet uit.
Hi, thanks for waiting. So at a technical conference, sometimes with technical difficulties, it happens. I'm Evelien. I'm very grateful to Robert for inviting me here today to have a talk to you about the topic of AI. And I want to talk about making sense of AI in business decision making. Recently, I saw this picture. I translated it here in case anyone doesn't speak Dutch. Robert is maybe funny because you work at the police. So are using AI. And then the text says, would you like me to suggest a couple of neighborhoods where you can make many arrests? And I think this is a very nice picture. It's a joke, but I think it's because it touches a lot of different things. Sort of wanted, but we are already a bit behind on schedule. Wanted to ask, like, what? Maybe you can take a second for yourself. What is funny to you about this?
That then normally police would stay away from this neighborhood.
From your neighborhood. They shouldn't, but they do.
So you think it makes it better? Yeah. Okay.
Make them safer.
Make them
they
safer.
know where not to go.
Okay, yeah.
I don't find it funny at all because I know what's going on in America with Palantir, and I think this touches a touchy subject.
Touchy subject. Okay, you think it's a bit too much on the edge.
Well, yeah.
Why is it touchy? Like, I think that's also fair. Why is it touchy?
Well, because they use AI to seek out people they want to deport.
So you think when you the ethics side of this. So you think like the use of AI, you're thinking of the ethics of this. Is this ethical to do? And using AI can lead to unwanted situations and makes it very no. It's a really good answer. Someone else, yeah.
I think the AI doesn't actually know what the police officers are doing. It's just providing like a solution or an opportunity to do more of what they're doing, but it doesn't actually know what the police are doing.
Yeah, so you're saying like there's AI is now making a suggestion and providing a solution direction to a problem that might not even be there. Like it may not even be aligned with.
And it doesn't know what the problem actually is because it's not actually thinking, of course.
No.
So it doesn't know the impacts this could have on the people living there, for example.
Okay, yeah, and it's also not showing any responsibility for the consequences of making such a suggestion. Yeah, really good. Any other?
I only see the wardrobe malfunction, but.
What? Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. It is for comfort after all. Maybe that's very good ventilation. I don't know. Yeah.
I think in this case, it's also very biased. So it knows that some neighborhoods maybe have more criminal records. So it suggests those neighborhoods, even though bad things can happen in any neighborhood, right?
So you feel like there's not a fairness to it, like by sending them to neighborhoods where there are already a lot of criminal records, you also will get more arrests and you get worse data, and so these neighborhoods will be worse, and the neighborhoods that were maybe good will have less surveillance, so even less arrests, and you get this amplifying. Yes.
It becomes self-prophecy.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, and so you also get some separation. Yeah, the back.
I'm working as an IT architect for the Dutch police.
Okay, nice.
For that police?
For this, but in general, it's day-to-day searching for the boundaries, where to use it, where we're allowed to use it, looking to the AI Act, to the Data Act, and also looking what's happening right now with WhatsApp, and stealing information from the government, from the military, perhaps also from the police. It's day-to-day business, what to do with cloud, what to do with AI, where to use it, which data to use it. So
yeah,
it's difficult.
I don't think so.
And this is for us very basic, because data analytics is something what we are doing already for years.
Yeah.
But AI, especially generative AI, is another world.
Yeah. Thanks. So I think that was a really nice addition to this picture, and I hear a lot of different things. So some people are talking about ethics, some people are talking about the fact that, and I think that it's very clear that this is a suggestion that's provided freely, right? And there are some very famous large language models that constantly keep suggesting things that you might want to do next, and then it's a machine that tries to just get us to write the next prompt, right? So it's not, it doesn't have any agency. I think the other thing is that we call this AI, but it's not really clear what happens here in the background. Like it's saying, I will suggest you this, but how will it make that suggestion? It doesn't say so, right? It's a black box.
Looks like he has a phone in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, like, how is it calculated?
The first thing I thought when I read it was that he suggests to the other one, I know some neighborhood. That it was not AI at all, but then I saw he's holding something in his hand. So maybe I missed that part.
Yeah. So
maybe it is using his phone.
Or Sukke saying this rather than the thing on his phone, reading it out loud. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But it's like, well, who is also the driving agent in this case? So I think it touches here on compliance, ethics, what one can do with AI, where behind that is also one thing that could be data-driven decision-making, which was the data analytics that's sometimes also covered under AI. So we hear about AI everywhere, and the point I wanted to make is what makes it difficult to get a grip on is that when we talk about AI, we talk about a whole bunch of things at the same time. So it touches on ethics, it touches on compliance, it touches on safety, it touches on the impacts of these decisions, and it also touches on what methods are used at the background of this. And today I want to actually more focus on the methods behind this. Because I want to introduce myself. I'm Evelien van der Hurk. I've been working now for 2 months at CGI as an expert in AI and decision intelligence. Before that, I was living in Denmark with my family. So here are my 2 kids and my husband. The kids were born in Denmark. My husband is actually from South Africa. And after we met, we moved to Denmark. There, I worked on, you could say AI, but with a focus on optimization, on decision intelligence, and also forecasting, where as an associate professor, I did research and I was teaching in this area, where in the last part of my time there, the university I was working in said, large language models like ChatGPT should be used as a tool. Any student can use it. Now make sure you have exams that can fit this. So from that side, I have also experienced this. And I've always loved public transport. I did my PhD at Netherlands Railways, and actually right now I'm working on a project at Netherlands Railways on how we can create impact from AI in business, where they say AI because this is the nicest word, but before that it was advanced analytics, and before that it was data-driven decision making. So if we talk about AI right now, it's really a hype, and I feel like part of that is also because a lot of people have invested a lot of money to push a certain thing, call it AI, and make everyone use that. But if we talk about the general concept of AI, it is a new and it has been around for a while. And I thought this was actually a nice picture to see that you could say already in 1956 there was some talks about AI. And it has been going a bit up and down. And then you can see, okay, it starts with some forecasting and prediction. Then you get like here in the 2000s, you see discover bank fraud, money laundering, discovering errors in healthcare billing. So we start to look for anomaly detection. So we start to think, okay, what can we do if we can predict well? Then in 2010, here are some examples of still prediction of oil field production, but also, for instance, optimization of container ship freight loading process. And I would also say that our current economy, where you can order anything online and get it delivered to your door, would not be possible without this optimization engine behind it that decides which vehicle at what time should bring that to your door in an efficient way. And then finally here, 2010s, we still see prediction, but we see also some usage of these large language models, and some of that is used on its own. You can also see it, I'd say it's also linked to recognizing files, like translating files to data, but also this LLMs. Like today, I've heard a lot about agentic AI and putting sort of a large language model between you and whichever software you want to use as an interface. So it's not new, but the focus right now is very much on these LLMs. But in this agentic AI, I feel, or I see that behind these agents often are different types of older AI solutions. So there could be computer vision. So right now, for instance, at Netherlands Railway, they're installing cameras to see the trains and try to see in time when there are defects, when they're missing bolts, instead of someone walking in the rain with a flashlight, looking if the train is still fine. So that could be an option of computer vision. Computer vision could also be used to see how trucks come in and detect that instead of someone having to look manually. Then you have machine learning. So machine learning in general to me is about forecasting. We have very classical models. Like my background actually is I studied econometrics. So if you think of the Centraal Planbureau, they have been predicting what the economy will do for decades. And machine learning in general also includes these neural networks, which then are to some extent the base of Gen AI. So Gen AI to me is very much part of this forecasting type of models, but used in a slightly different context, because rather than forecasting a specific number, it's trying to forecast what the question is that you have, or actually what the most likely answer to that question is, word by word. Then my background is in operations research, where that is about optimization, scheduling, and I feel that because there is more buzz around AI, and because possibly with these agents we can access this, we will see more of this happening in practice as well, also in places where maybe because of different reasons this wasn't accessed before. So what I want to do is, adapted from Davenport, he came with these different types of analytics. So some people say analytics, others say AI. So what I had in mind for my talk today was to just go through these different types of analytics to get a bit of an idea what is now behind these different agents. And if you already know all of that, then I've not made the right presentation. Then you should just interrupt me with the questions that you have. What I want to try to do is give you some examples and then go into some examples at CGI that we've had where some of these different ones have been successful, and then talk a bit about the pitfalls of using this currently. And my reason for wanting to do this rather than talking about
Something else.
Well, I don't work with SAP. I don't know. I was asked here to come here from CGI. We don't necessarily work with SAP. We could work with SAP, but in the end, I think it's not about working with SAP. It's not about working with a specific tool. What people have is a question is like, okay, I need to do something with AI. What can I do with it? And which tools should I then use? And if you know a little bit about these categories and you start to recognize, oh, I have this kind of problem and I can solve that kind of tool, you have a lot more I think a probability of success, but also you have a much more targeted way of searching. And the other thing is that I think it can be fun as an exercise for yourself is next time you read about AI that you can start to think like, okay, where did it fit in this picture? What kind of AI were they actually talking about? And I hope that will give you some structure to not just have AI as a general concept where it becomes a bit blurry, but it helps to structure these things in your head a bit. Okay, so this has been categorized from difficulty to value. I think difficulty in this case, I'm expecting that this person had a lot for mathematics. So I would say the difficulty of the mathematics becomes more advanced if you go this direction. But if we talk about difficulty from a process point of view, maybe this picture is not right. Because any of these things can only be successful if you think of the question before also asked, is this actually my problem? Is this the strategic problem my company has? Or do I actually have a different problem? Because we can say, okay, here's a hammer, go ahead, but maybe you don't need a hammer. And if you just start banking on things, it's not going to help you solve your problem. So it's tools, and you need to have real problems, and then the tools come in. And to me, not the other way around. But in general, you can categorize them. So we have descriptive analytics. That's about what happened. So if we think back, unfortunately, at another police case was in the news, right, where they were looking at how many people had accessed the file on the murder of someone. And they found 1,700 people had accessed this. So they were trying with descriptive analytics, how many people have accessed this, to answer a question. Actually, the question came from someone that had heard a couple of colleagues talking about this case in such a detail that she was like, is that correct? And then someone had this question, oh, do too many people know about this? And they just checked. They went through the descriptive analytics and they said, okay, let's check how many people actually access this file. And then they found 1,700 and they immediately jumped to conclusions and went to the news before checking where they actually checked the file and whether this was normal in other cases. And now the second message is like, maybe they just wanted to know what the suspect looked like. And this was a very valid reason to access those files. So you can also see like, okay, what happened, but you have to keep thinking about your question and double check whether it's right. So that's the first part. Then diagnostic analytics would be about why did it happen? So you dig a little bit deeper. Maybe you link a couple of data sets together. The diagnostic analytics was only added later, maybe because you can do a lot of descriptive analytics and you wanted to have another later. Then there's predictive analytics, what will happen in the future. And finally, there's prescriptive analytics, and that's about what should we do. Descriptive analytics, I actually just gave an example of that. There are a couple of other ones that are really interesting. For instance, customer segmentation. Now, you could also do that for criminals if you want to stay within the police and think about ethics of that. But I'm pretty sure that Booking.com will do this for their different users. What kind of users do I have? Netherlands Railways does it for their users. What kind of different people do I have? They make these customer profiles, and then you can also target your marketing on these different profiles. You can also do it with your market. You could also do it on medical data to try to see if you have different patient types where different treatments work maybe better for different patients. So it's not just descriptive analytics, doesn't just have to be about counting. It can also be about finding patterns in data. So diagnostic analytics to me would be about bottleneck identification. So then you start to make your process and you can try to see, okay, if you find, for instance, lead times are very long, why are lead times very long? Then you plot your process and you start to look for the places where this starts to get slow. The idea is here that if you find this bottleneck, then that can also give you an idea of where you want to have speed ups. So, for example, we also work together with ANPS, which is the nuclear authority. They check whether anyone that has nuclear devices, and that sounds very scary, but the prevention machine is one, whether that's used appropriately, and they have to decide where to visit. Now, one could consider to do a process to find out where the bottlenecks are, and then maybe you find that making these appointments takes really a lot of time and takes a lot of time away from people to actually decide on where to go and do these checks. Then that's an interesting place to start to consider, how can I automate this, or how can I use AI to make this faster? And that could be like making standard emails, right? It doesn't have to necessarily immediately be scary options. And I also put anomaly detection in this part. So that could be, for instance, with banks, if you want to try to find fraud. But it could also be about, for instance, predictive maintenance, where you try to find out, oh, here I see different behavior of a train. I'm going to do something about it. Then we get to predictive analytics. So that could be forecasting the future. And this has been an area of research for a very, very long time. And that could be your sales prognosis, or maybe your energy needs, which will then tell you how many windmills you need to buy, economic growth, stock market development. How these kind of models or pension funds would have a really tough time. So they use a lot of forecasting to try to see what will the market do. It could also be about the traffic on your website. So how much space do I have to have on this website? And it could be also, again, about this maintenance. When should I perform maintenance on a specific part? And then finally, we come to prescriptive analytics. And the difference here is that it provides you concrete decision support for complex tasks. So what I already mentioned, which truck should deliver my package? Or it could do, what time should the train leave? Or what time should the hotel stay be? Or how should I build a wind farm? The thing is, I can also ask these things to Gen AI. I could, and most models will give me an answer. So why, for me, as someone that really likes predictive analytics, this is important, is because the background of these are mathematical rules that will say that if it's not possible, it will tell you it's not possible. You are the one deciding what the constraints should be. So what should make a feasible solution? It will only indicate feasible solutions for you and not things that are approximately correct. And sometimes it's fine to have an approximation, but if we talk about, for instance, a train schedule, I don't want to have trains on average not collide. I want to make sure that it's actually safe. I don't want to have on average every package that should be in a car. I want to have them specifically in the right van and delivered on time. So if you want to have strictly feasible solutions, you want to be control on what is a feasible solution, and you want the complete control on what is a good solution, then this is very powerful too. Now, the downside of this is that it comes with mathematics, and not everyone likes mathematics, and that's fine. So then you can find an expert that can help you with this, but then not all the experts know how to talk to you to explain how this works in your process. But what I found interesting, and I'm not saying that that's the way to go, but you can relatively easily, if you have a well-defined problem, you can start to build these models with the AI tools. So for very simple ones, so maybe a small proof of concept, you can try something like this. You can say, I want to have an optimization model, and I want to maybe make a schedule for a conference, and these are my constraints. Can you now write a model for me? So I found that when I was teaching a course on the basics of prescriptive analytics, most of my start entry exam questions could be answered by AI already. So I think that makes it a little bit more accessible and maybe interesting to experiment. Now you might say, what about Gen AI? Because Gen AI is everywhere on the conference today. So
to me, Gen AI is very much part of the predictive models. And if I ask a Gen AI model, it will say, I think I'm different, but I'm sort of part of it. But what is specific about it, because it's also not the same as someone just trying to predict some number. So to me, what's specific about it is that it uses a large amount of often unknown data. So it's trained on data, and maybe if you train your own large language model, you can control which data is trained on. But some of these publicly available ones, you don't know what it's trained on. It gives you a forecast based on a text input. Now, if we have think of forecasting models in the past, if you reach 80% as a accuracy level of a forecasting model, you're generally very, very happy. As a person, we're really good at finding these patterns. So think of a horoscope. Someone maybe has once read a horoscope, and then if you want, you can find maybe some reason why it's not completely false. Not always, but people find these patterns, and that's why they like to believe in this. Well, I think to some extent there's a risk of that as well. When we have something that gives us text back, we as a human start to think and look for patterns and think like, oh yeah, I think how this can fit my question. The definition of a correct response in training is unknown. So what you see, and that was also clear in this Fouke and Sukke example, is that right now a lot of these models, every time they ask you a next question to keep you hooked and to keep you talking to this thing, even if it's maybe not the initial assignment that you had in mind, it gives you large pieces of text back, and it's not always the best way to come to a very concise definition of the assignment you had in mind. So are you in control of what it does here, or is someone else trying to use you to sell their product? And finally, the objective of so that's the last thing, the objective of the AI model owner might not align with the user. So if I think of SAP, and I think it's interesting, it could also be very powerful. What this Joule does is it tries to guess what a user wants, and then it tries to guess the answer. And if it's really good at guessing what someone wants and really good at guessing what the answer is, then you have a system that works very, very well. But before that, you had a little bit of a burden on the user side to really start to think about what is it that I want to do. And by using an old-fashioned GUI interface with fixed functions, you also had a very, very tight guardrails on what you could do. So certain things you might not need to think about all the details of the things in the analysis you wanted to do. You could just say, oh yeah, this analysis is probably fine, and someone else has thought about this, so that's fine. So I think when we use these large language models, we can also think about, do we want such a wide context? Do we want to have so many things that we need to specify every time we use it? Or are there some use cases where it's better to have a smaller guardrail, smaller set of options, because it will just work faster? I don't have to think about all my requirements every time. Finally, because it's forecasting, you also have to think about how you work with it. So I had a very nice presentation before. I can get my objectives automatically summarized from my report with my manager. Maybe that report came from our text, the text translation of our meeting. I don't know how your conversations go with your manager, but usually I start off with some small things and some small talk, and then we maybe trail off a bit. And then by the end, it's like, oh yeah, we needed to fill in these 4 fields as well. And you fill them in with a few keywords. And that becomes like 5% of the whole text. Now this large language model starts to forecast, and it looks at what occurs a lot, then that's probably important. There's only 3 or 4 keywords here. I don't know where to place them. And it might, I'm not saying it will, it might ignore it. Like the way that these large language models would look at the text is different from a human, and that's okay. But of the point that you start to rely on it, you also have to think about, did my input now satisfy what works for me as a human, or did it satisfy what works for machines? So I think there's some risks in unknown errors there. Anyways, I do think that AI can have really nice opportunities. So here, unfortunately, these slides always contain a huge amount of text. And I don't know if someone has the time for me, because I have no idea. So 10 minutes.
Je mag 10 minuten. De item mag je pakken.
Ja. Of zou het nu klaar moeten zijn?
Nee, ik heb het 2:15. Dus omdat het dan in het wisseltijd zit.
Okay. So we have some time. So this is an example of descriptive analytics. And what is it about? Increased efficiency and accuracy of document processing. So what is the challenge here? So we have, I cannot use company names, but there's a government organization that knows a lot about road structures, road objects. And now everything at the moment is saved on paper, in paper documents. And we have people that have to read these documents that might be, for example, about a bridge. And they have to get the key information from this and put it into a database. So that's a lot of work. And I think also most people will not like this type of work because you're just copying information about from a physical document. So what this application was about is that you say, oh, well, this is actually a case where the process is relatively easy. We have to scan the document. Well, it's now quite easy to translate a picture into text, numbers. And then we have certain places where we know, okay, here is this part of the information, there's that part of the information, and then you can automate it. So then now we say we use AI to translate these physical documents into digital information on these different structures. Then here you can see it reduces 44% of the manual effort and improves data accuracy to over 95%. So it's not flawless, but you could also wonder how many mistakes a person makes, because anyone has, I think most people will have made a typo. And at the same time, we're automating here something that would have been a huge task if you would do it with people. And I don't know if it would have been a nice job to go through these physical documents and put in that information. And then, of course, you can try to double check this or flag some exceptions or where you can find it. So I think that's a very nice example of where you can use descriptive analytics and you can use this pattern finding to get more information. And that can then next be part of your data-driven decision making. So if you have this information, you can think again about something like predictive maintenance. The next part is about reducing workload with Microsoft Copilot at a healthcare provider. So in this case, it's predictive. So here, what they first did is they looked at the process of a large healthcare provider, and they found that a lot of people were using a lot of time in writing documents where there was a lot of standard parts to these documents. So they needed to do some administration, but the type of administration they did was, you could say, simply say, somewhat boring. And this was preventing them to spend actual time with the patients. So maybe they needed to log something or they needed to send standard at specific times. So what they did here is they had a couple of workshops and strategies, and they started to save what is really important, what is the standard we want to follow. And then they provided Copilot to help you do these boring tasks or help you do these boring tasks faster so that there was more time available with the customers. And then finally, we talk about a home furnishing retailer. You can probably think of your own favorite home furnishing retailer. So here we are talking about prescriptive analytics, and the outcome was reduced fulfillment costs. So here they had these prescriptive analytics models, and the thing was not just building it, but the part that really helped here was to help people how it worked. So what does it mean to optimize? What does it mean to set a certain objective? What does it mean to add a certain number of constraints? So that helped them to own the AI, to make sure that they used it in a way that was appropriate for their own business process. And then you can see that it drove measurable fulfillment cost savings by more than 10 million in 8 months. So I think that's why, to me, these prescriptive analytics models are so interesting, because I'm leaving it at this case, but often we see like a huge impact from this. And what it does is it tries to help you usually create a win-win situation. So you try to remove waste from your process where you are able to get a higher quality at lower cost. That's, to me, what motivates me to work in that field. I want to add a note on the importance of data, because any of these models are based on data. All of them are. So what you put in is what you get out. you have to think about the consistency or inconsistency that's in there, the unconscious bias that it might have, the definition of success that drives the results. And this I already covered, the success of the AI owner will not be your business success if you're buying a product. Is it really trying to help you, or is it trying to increase its own revenue? And it's okay if it tries to increase its own revenue. You just have to see if that aligns with your business processes.
Question: when you're creating your own models and you learn it, and then they say you're learning it with your data, you start with a basic model, or is it really blank, and is your data really providing it with learning? I mean, let's say for SAP, I'm going to load up all my invoices. The model already needs to know what an invoice is, or...
So that's a good question. So if you want to automate your own invoices, for example, I don't know what's SAP first in general, but you could start to talk to your own finance department, and then you could know what's to your finance department, how it's delivered, whether you have a locked-in vendor system or not. So do you have to first be reported as a vendor or not? Which ways you allow to get your... So my mom works in finance administration, and I think she has an AI model that now does some of this automatically. And she was really annoyed because I think in the old times, BTW numbers, tax numbers, they were allowed to write with points. But the AI model doesn't recognize it when it's with points. So now it's marks as not available. And, this is not hard. Like, at least this is a problem. But if you are the one building this model behind it, the fact that it can also be with points, it's not hard to implement. But it is an example where it makes sense to customize it and where it makes sense to have some of your own users in the loop of developing this. And if you have some control over this model, then you can more easily adjust these things. But I'm not saying everyone should build their own stuff. I just think it's good to know what happens in the background and that you think about what you need when you choose a solution. I will keep this very short. I wanted to end a little bit with what I did at some point, because I actually worked with smart card data in my PhD to forecast travel flows. So we first looked at the data to see, for instance, what did people do in case of a very large disruption? Did they wait at the station? Did they move away? Can we see how they go? Can we then forecast where people are traveling? And then in case of a large disruption, can we give them personal travel advice on how to avoid this disruption and make sure there's a bit of a more balance between how many capacity there is in the train and where people are traveling. So there was the personalized travel advice, and there was the long stop traveling. So which train should be how long and where, tied together. In the concept of having an uncertain disruption time. I thought, this is amazing. This is cool. We're going to do this. And then they said, no, because our systems are not ready. So this was the first part where it was really nice to do, and I was doing research on this, okay? But I was doing this research, but I was completely removed from where the systems were at that point of time. They said, like, okay, this is fun that you thought of this advanced solution, but there's no way we can have the communication at this point, like at this speed in real time. Our systems cannot integrate this. And we're not sure if it will really work in practice, and we want to be really sure. So no way. So to me, this is one of the examples where you say, if you don't start with what your problem is and where the problem lies in the business and how it's going to land at the end, it's not going to work. Then here it was also difficult because we had only part of the people at that point in time using their smart card. Now you have also lots of different systems where people are using their card. So do we have good enough data to actually do that forecasting? If you don't have good data, then the system also breaks down. And it wasn't just about having the data, it was also about the consistency in the data. So in that data, people were able to travel backwards in time. So it was very futuristic, but probably there were just errors. So I wanted to say it starts with your actual problems in business, how it can also land, making sure that it fits your strategic perspective and having good quality data. I also wanted to show you something about how quick this unconscious bias is, because as you can probably see, I didn't make this picture, right? It's generated. So I gave a prompt to the AI and it gave me this picture. It's maybe similar, but maybe some of you in the room can see why I felt like I couldn't present this. It only has guys in there.
What guys?
What guys? So I was like, no, now it feels like someone else did it. I did this. So also, just to tell you, it matters to feel represented. I then said, I want some women in there. And then I got this. So I still got only white people. But look, like she needs to smile and look pretty and her hair is fit and it has a certain size. This guy, you know, I don't know if he goes to the gym. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. You know, I didn't spend a lot of money on his hair. So we have a lot of unconscious bias about who would be involved in such a project and what they should look like. And it took me a lot of effort to get not just white people in here. And I still think this is a very mediocre representation of a diverse group of people. So it can happen very quickly, these biases that are involved. So to conclude, why isn't it as easy as just boarding this AI train? I hear a couple of people, they get the assignment, oh, just make impact with AI, go ahead to these tools. And I would say because it's built on data quality, it's built on how your current IT flexibility, can you let it land in your systems? It starts with your strategy and value drivers. It doesn't start with using a tool. It starts with what you actually want to achieve. You have to think about your users' needs. You also have to actually think about the training of your capacities, your capabilities, and keeping that. I didn't even touch on that. And finally, there's ethics and compliance. Now, I wanted to add, at the time is almost up, but I wanted to add that, of course, RDS CGI knows how to do this ethics, how to do the sovereignty, how to do the safety part. So if you need advice on that, we have experts on that item. Then I want to say just thanks for listening and happy here to chat further.
I found the last part where you said, okay, now there were no women in it. But that's also bias that you have, because I see a hand, I see a person. So there's a bias that you have on your side. I find that always very
interesting talk. So this is there's a famous story about this, and it's asking people, if you look in the mirror, what do you see? So a man will say, I see a person. You know, and a woman then says, I see a woman, because she experiences that she's not seen just as a person, she's seen as a specific type of person, as a woman. If you ask a person of color, they will probably mention their color. If you ask a woman of color, she will mention probably the color and the fact that she's a woman. And the thing is that it's not this person that sees them. It's some feedback that you constantly get from society. So it's an advantage. I also know there are not so many women today here, so I'm often experienced that people remember that I was there. So sometimes there can be advantages to it, but it can also be a lot of hard work. Yeah. And then you can say, okay, for this talk, is it important? Well, it's important for me that someone in the room that's not a man feels included in it. It's important to me when I'm teaching that I have a diverse set of people so that they feel referenced as well. And if you talk about your customers, you will not only have white men. So if you want to address a larger group of people, and I mean, men is roughly 50%. So if you want to have the other 50%, I think it's worthwhile to think about it when you are getting talent, when you're selling products. And this is just one example of this unconscious bias. Because these large language models, they're trained on a place and data where men were sort of doing everything. And I really liked Pauline Cornelis' little column the other day about this topic, where she said, when I was small, I was really excited about some women having specific jobs, and what would a pilot that's a woman be called? And then she thought like, at least Tom and Jerry have been invented by a woman because it's at Hanna-Barbera. The last time with two guys. But it showed also something about the risk of representation. So it's a bit of a different topic. I'm happy to talk about it. But I would say if you want to sell to a broad audience and if you want to have the best talent, and I can tell you from a university perspective, the women work harder. The women at university, they work harder And thereby, on average, I would say out of the women pool, you have a smarter person because she worked harder than a man. Of course, not women are generally smarter than men. I'm not saying that. But maybe you could also say the system favors women, right? There's lots of articles on that, like, oh, the system actually favors women. It was made by men. Now women are entered and they start to complain, oh, it favors women actually. So it's sometimes men can actually build something that
That's why men cook better.
It's interesting that
You should try.
that cooks, like chef cooks are often considered to be men, but if you ask who makes the dinner at home, the general rule expectation is on the women. But again, that's not my field of expertise. My field of expertise is on the advanced models and analytics.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan kregen we 5 minuten break. Oh.
Nee, want dat is een selling point. De doelstelling is, het doel was AI.
You just keep it open, but it's fine. So unmute, done. Welcome to this session around dogs or LLMs. So today we heard a lot of things, how to connect LLMs and how to connect to the data connected to the SAP system and all, which is very exciting. And I do a lot of technical work, having done mostly ABAP stuff in my life. So the difficult part for me is all the soft stuff, like how to secure that you actually succeed in implementing an LLM, because there's a lot of different LLMs, right? So first part will be some of the soft stuff, and next part will be a bit more technical. And thank you to Booking.com for having me. I was late submitting my proposal, but I got in anyhow. Anyhow, my name is Lars. I have my own company where I try to do ABAP stuff and been working with open source for the last 10 years. Started a project called ABAP Kits, then I have one called ABAP Lint, I have one called ABAP OpenChecks, and probably many more that never really got anywhere, but they are on the internet. And luckily, I put stuff on the internet like 10 years ago, open source MIT license. So now we have LLMs today that can actually write ABAP code because it is on the internet, right? And yeah, I think today in 2016, there's no question LLMs can write ABAP code. Just try it. So use Claude Code, use the SAP offerings, use the AWS offerings, Google, they can all write ABAP code, right? So the world is kind of changing, right? So code is cheap nowadays, but then let's talk, right? So the important part of development, perhaps and longest part of development, is not writing the code. But I think it becomes increasingly more important to talk about what code to implement. So I can implement 100 features. So take the entire backlog, assign it to an LLM. Oh, you get the ABAP code done. But perhaps what's in the backlog, is that the most important part? Or should we prioritize doing these 5 first, because there is testing to be done in the landscape by business users that actually take time, right? So also talking about the architecture of the system, the LLMs will try to do things, but how do you build your system in a scalable architectured way, having thought a bit about it and also talked with your colleagues a bit about it so that the full company actually understands it? Because as mentioned, setting up LLMs is easy, I'd call it, right? So Marianne Zeiss made a long list here of different SAP AI MCP servers. Shout out to Alice from Microsoft that Holger showed, right? And I guess we have Marcello somewhere here. Yeah, he's over there with the ABAP, remote ABAP file system. And there's a lot of things emerging. It goes very fast because like, let's just vibe code an MCP client and let's get going. Yeah. So going a bit back, so what we saw earlier today in the keynote by Robert, right? What he said is that big companies consist of all these different silos. So there's people working with Microsoft, real Microsoft offerings, doing infrastructure. There's people doing other programming languages and ABAP, right? So having spent some time in the open source world, I also do other programming languages. And typically they are a few steps ahead of ABAP and SAP. So I typically say it takes 5 years for anything to happen in the SAP ecosystem, right? So perhaps it's time that we look a bit outside the silo. What is actually happening in I call it the real world, because like we're just inside a walled garden and having fun and everything is sun and shiny, right? I found these 2 factory AI agent readiness model, and there's also Dora AI from Google that has some good pointers on how to actually be successful in implementing AI. And again, I'm mainly technical focused on doing development stuff. But let's just dive right into it. So these people at Factory AI, they made this framework for measuring how your code base supports autonomous development. Right? Yeah, cool. But what is it actually? One of the key points is that the agent is typically not broken, the environment is, right? So how do we set up a feedback loop? So you put in a prompt to the agent and it does something, and perhaps it does something wrong. It always does something wrong. That's just like normal developers like me, I always do something wrong, right? But how do you make this feedback loop and make sure that you can improve the loop all the time to get a more consistent result? Like if you talk about architecture in your company and decide, okay, let's do this, then probably you need to write down and explain the agent or other humans what is your decision so that they actually can try to follow your business decisions in your company, right? So Factory AI is based on 8 technical pillars: style and validation, build system, testing, documentation, development environment, code quality, observability, security, and governance. Cool.
No copy.
No copy, yeah. I'll put that in, I'll make a new edition of the slides. Style and validation. So relating this a bit to SAP and ABAP, do we have style and validation things in order at your company? Many of the companies I've done consulting for still has a lot of things to do in style and validation. Perhaps there's a document sitting on a SharePoint site or a Atlassian Confluence page that nobody actually reads. Perhaps you have some code inspector set up and you have some baseline things, but have you actually tried running your ATC checks on the code base that you have with the guidelines and the validation things that is possible to check? Yeah, I'll let you decide that in your company, right? So there's a long way to go and a lot of effort that can be implemented here at your company, implementing ATC or other static analysis tools to make sure that your code actually follows the guidelines. And this is one of the pillars, right? Because this is important for LLMs, but it's also important for humans. So whenever going to a new customer, they always have different development guidelines. And as a developer, I just do whatever works, right? And I need remembering that these are actually the guidelines. So do we use prefix variables, or should I remember to do my order select by in a specific way? I don't remember, I need reminding. And so does LLMs, right? So it does something like me, and then I figure out it's wrong, and then I fix it, right? Build system, yeah. It's difficult in SAP, so do we have a build system? Don't we have a build system? But let's take a look at that a bit later. Testing. So how many have a lot of unit tests in their system, right? One person that has a lot of unit tests in the system.
It was 90%.
90% coverage. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But then you're on the right track with one of the 8 pillars. Because like if you don't have tests, right, so how can the LLM validate that everything works when it's changed some code? How can humans validate that everything works when it changed some code? Of course, also testing can mean a lot of things. We talked about functional testing earlier, and perhaps it takes 3 months to move something to production because you need to schedule testing with your business and then have a few weeks of waiting and pick a few things back and forth. But then again, does it really matter if like you're doing LLMs, right? Because if your lead time to development is 3 months anyhow, and I can write the code in 10 minutes instead of 1 day, does it really impact my ability to help the business getting the value out of the SAP system? Not so much, right? But if you invest in testing like over here, then it will help the LLMs to get feedback that improves the code and the suggestions that it actually builds, right? Documentation, yeah. Actually, I think perhaps you need documentation. Does everybody have updated documentation? I don't think so. Of course, we can use LLMs to generate documentation. Okay, now you have documentation over here, but is it up to date or is it correct? Well, I don't know. What will happen next? I don't know, but I'm asking LLMs, so how does this report work? Where does this happening in the system? So perhaps documentation will disappear. I don't know. But it's important to talk about, because you can just prompt the LLM, where does the purchase order get created? I have a user exit somewhere, go find it, please fix brain more in danger, make no errors, right? Make it secure. Development environment. Yeah, everybody has development environment, but remember, this comes like from the real world. So in the real world, everybody has a development environment. Everybody gets a development environment. But in SAP, we are typically confined to one central development system that has tens or hundreds of developers changing code at the same time. So again, like doing the style validation, let me check the code in the development system is completely correct. It will never be, right? Because there's always 10 of developers that is changing the code. Let me run the unit tests in the development system. You probably have experience with that, right? So in development, something will always fail because everything is always work in progress. So this is failing. Yeah, I was working. I went on vacation. Yeah. I'll fix this in 10 weeks. So yeah, development environment, I think kind of not. We have something different in SAP, but let's see how perhaps that can be fixed, right? Code quality and observability. Yeah. Security and governance, like how many people do like to commit their AWS secrets to in ABAP and put that in the code? Yeah, I've seen that happening, right? And as we talked about, it is important to work with these concepts or pillars, or just take a few of them and actually work on them, right? Because like the more tests you actually have, the better results you get from the agents. The more guiding you do, for instance, with development guidelines or static analysis, the better results you get in the end, instead of having to iterate all the time and ask it for something new. So this is one of the important takeaways. Make sure to work with this, not only for LLM, but also for your developers that are already there. It makes sense for everybody if it's human or AI. Then there is the DORA AI capabilities model. It's also something produced from Google, and it takes a lot of the same input and tries also to formulate these are the important things for you to consider as a company to make LLM implementation successful. And again, we only have 7 core principles here instead of the 8 pillars. User-centric focus, that's more choosing what from the backlog that you like to implement. Strong version control capabilities. Yeah, we have version control in ABAP, right, in an SAP system, but I'd emphasize this word strong. So we don't really have good overview. So if a developer changes something in the SAP system, then you put it in a transport, and when the transport is released, it creates a new version. Yeah, and you can go look it up, right? But in an SAP system, it's pretty difficult to actually get an overview. So this was changed by this person at this exact time, right? So whenever I see something called version control, I think it's, yes, put all your code on GitHub, like at Microsoft, then you have the full overview exactly what was changed by when. You can do git blame, and you can see exactly who changed this and what is the proposal of things to be changed in the system or Git, right? Working in small batches. So that's also something very important, I think. Typically, like if you do like this 3-month release schedule, then you have to put things together and make a large change that needs a lot of testing that can have a possibility, a large impact. But if you do a small change, then humans and LLMs are more eager to actually try to test it and figure out if there are any bugs, because the change is small, so it's easy to get an overview, right? But it also implies that you need to release a bit more often, typically. I don't know your release schedule in all the companies here. Working in small batches, yeah. Because like, make it testable, make sure you get the feedback running every time you do a change, right? Then I think this is quite important, and I'm surprised that nobody has actually talked about this so far today in sessions that I've been, right? So you can do a lot of things with LLMs. You can connect open Claude bots to your email and have it delete all your emails and send all the emails, reply to all the emails. There's a lot of different ways that you can have LLMs write code directly in your system and connect that with your production data and so on. But what is actually allowed at your company? What is your preferred way, and what are the ways that you're not allowed to do it? Like, because if I have a lot of authorizations in the production system, I can collect my LLM to that and change the system settings. Then I'll just write the programs in production. It's fine. It's gonna be amazing velocity delivering changes, right? And perhaps that's the way to go. Perhaps there's a different way, and perhaps there's some different options and directions that your companies would like to take, right? Another thing is all the privacy things. So does this send your data to somewhere in the world that you're not interested in, or is it okay? This is a talk that your companies need to have, I think. And of course, AI has changed a lot. So there's a lot of talking to be done here, and there's a lot of changing to be done. And perhaps this document that it proposed here just says, everything's allowed, go for it. And I think that's also fine, because then there is a communication and decision that you can follow, communicated internally in your company. Then a bit back to me here. So we've talked about agentic AI all day and LLMs, but what does agentic AI actually mean? So according to Wikipedia, it means that it does things autonomously, so by itself. But I think I see a lot of agentic AI that is actually what I call attended agentic AI. This doesn't make sense by definition that attended is autonomous agentic. But like, if you as a developer needs to click approve, then it's attended agentic AI. If I need to keep my VS Code open and not reboot the PC, then it's attended agentic AI. Unattended agentic AI is one example. If I create an issue on GitHub, I assign it to Mr. Copilot, then it actually goes on and does its things and opens a pull request without me actually looking at it, without me providing inputs. It just does something and then it gets back to me. I can go my merry way, do something else on my PC, right? And I'm very much in this direction, unattended agentic AI or autonomous AI, or what is meant by agentic AI. I think let the agents run free and just see what happens. And yeah, there is of course some consequences to this, and there's different setups that you might have. But again, improve the feedback loop. So if I let the agents run free, then it will go figure something out and I don't need to spend much time on it, right? And then when or if it does something wrong against like humans, then I tighten the feedback loop, says perhaps I do static analysis, I add another unit test, or I add some extra skills saying, okay, you're not allowed, you should not be doing this, or you should always make it fast and secure, all right? So basically, what I'm saying here is that my proposal, in my opinion, is that agentic AI should be off stack. So what do I mean by this? So typically we work in this central development system that has multiple users or developers working at the same time, but everybody can actually get their own development environment, just like the real world, right? Because like 10 years ago, I started this project called ABAP Git that can take the artifacts from the SAP system, put it into Git, and then you have all your code in Git. Once you have all your code in Git, then do agentic AI, have it poke around in the code, open a pull request with its changes, but again, tighten the feedback loop. And there's multiple different ways to tighten the feedback loop. So going back again. And this is where open source kind of comes into play. So I think use ABAP Git, get your code on GitHub, and along with this, you'll also get an easy overview of who changed what and when. And you can do human code reviews. So in the SAP world, the ABAP developers are very much cowboys working alone. I don't want anybody else to take a look at my code because this is my program, right? I think professional companies cannot have that opinion, right? They need, as a company, you need to share your knowledge internally and collaborate on the code. Like if there's two people, again, going back to one of the previous slides, talking about code, then it might improve the code. You might figure out, okay, I need to tighten the feedback loop because there's something missing. And you actually share experience also about the business process that you're implementing fixes to change. And I think that's enough reason to put all the code in Git, do code reviews, and let LM right. Of course, on GitHub and other platforms, you also get automated code reviews with GitHub Copilot, right? So again, we talked a bit about ABAP Git. So my recommendation is set up ABAP Git and use this so-called flow feature, and there's a link down here. So the idea is to mirror branches and pull requests. So in the SAP system, you do changes in the SAP system, put that in a transport that can be mirrored to GitHub so that you have the same changes in both places. It's also possible that you start doing your changes on GitHub and then you pull it into a transport into the system. So it's kind of a two-way mirror. And I think that's important nowadays with like LLM. So you get some feedback from Copilot, right? Change this line, and then you need to pull that in back into the system, or you do some changes in the system and then you push that. But you get a nice pull request, opening up a lot of features for interacting just like the normal world. Because like the future of ABAP developers will not be only ABAP, right? So there's a lot of other technologies out there that we cannot easily ignore. Just like the big slide that what its name from Google showed, there's all of these different components and everything has to work together. There's external integrations, and you will, as an ABAP developer, have to look at that at some point in time. And if you look at some code that is typically not ABAP, then they actually work process-wise in more or less the same way. You have a Git repository, you open a pull request or merge request, and do a code review, get that merged, and then to start the release process of moving that to production. And yeah, so with this, you can use your favorite tool. I don't really care if you use SE80, ADT, or the new VS Code plugin, or Marcello's plugin, or Alice's plugin. I don't care if you use Notepad. I don't care if you use the GitHub web editor. Just click the edit button, click save. It's fine. Because like everything gets into Git, which way it comes from, yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's still everything flows, all changes flow the same way through the system and follows a process, defined process where you might get feedback from continuous integration here, like executing the unit tests, doing static analysis, or you require human reviews, or you require only LLM reviews. And again, looking at the outside world, having continuous integration and feedback from other tooling in the development is normal. But in ABAP, I think it's very few companies that actually have an automated pipeline providing feedback to the developer. And also in this process, it's always important to shift feedback left, so that the earlier in the process that the developer gets the feedback, the better. So if I do a commit, of course it should execute the unit test, because I like to see, okay, I broke something here, and not when I start releasing the transport. When I release the transport, that's when all the development is done. I don't want the feedback there. I want it when I wrote my first line of ABAP code. That might be a syntax error, but it's fine. And then I get a feedback. Oh, you have a syntax error. Yeah, and I know exactly. Oh, you have commented some code. Yeah, that's because I did it, because I have a work in development, right? It also increases the transparency to your colleagues as developers. So what is the status on doing this change in the system? Well, let me just go to GitHub and check the code so I can see, has this started? Is it moving in the right direction? Where did it leave off with somebody got sick or went on holiday and it's needed for something else urgently, right? Which, at least in my experience, has been typically a problem at customers, right? Yeah, we talked a bit about static analysis and unit testing. I made this small open source project that is called ABAP lint, and it is basically a linter. And in the real world, a linter is just a piece of code that checks the in this case ABAP code for errors. You can compare it a bit like Code Inspector, except that this runs without an SAP system. Again, everybody gets a development system. So now I actually have a development system or feedback from static analysis here running in my browser, right? Saying something like, this table does not exist. So let me just go ahead here and change the code. Now this variable actually exists, but I introduced some other problems because I'm old style, a classic developer. I never remember that I need to use empty key instead of default key. And of course, all of this is configurable, right? So if you prefer, saying it's okay to use default key instead of empty key, there's a large configuration file here that can be adjusted to suit your needs, right? All of this runs standalone, so it's perfect for continuous integration. So you can run it on a Linux box. It downloads the code from Git, runs on that. In this case, we saw it running in the browser, but it also, of course, runs in VS Code. So when SAP releases their VS Code extension, this can be automatically hooked in. Just click install, and then you get the extension. It also works with Marcello's ABAP remote file system, right? Yeah. Going back. So again, going a bit back and taking the default key and empty key, it's a very simple rule. And of course, you can instruct LLMs saying, whenever defining an internal table, never use default key, remind the developer that you need to use empty key. But I'm like, well, is that the use case for LLMs? I can make a regular expression searching through the code base for this. So I recommend let static analysis be static analysis. Don't use LLMs to do static analysis. You can do search replace and all that. LLMs can be used for other things like saying, oh, you must organize it nicely into packages and small encapsulated classes that have a nice segregation of responsibilities, right? You can put that to the LLM because that's really difficult for a static analysis to do. It's also kind of difficult for a developer to do. Perhaps if putting that in as a requirement during code review and the LLM gives feedback, then the human might be, yeah, that's actually correct, Mr. Copilot. Let me just take a look at that, or ask the LLM, you go fix it, right? Exactly the same with order by that we heard earlier today, that of course LLMs can insert order by primary key to your select statements and help you to move to S4HANA. But I can also do a search and replace in the ABAP code to actually do it. There's other things that LLMs are good for, but I think these static things, you don't get static results from an LLM. You get dynamic results that might change over time. You change the model and then it does something else, right? Also, doing real static analysis is better for the environment, Go environment, and a good example is open source ABAP Kit, where we run static analysis for every commit from everywhere in the world. So any one of you in here can go and suggest changes to this open source project. It will run the static analysis. It will run unit tests for a budget of €0. Thank you, Microsoft. But it kind of also solved the most difficult problem, right? Because not in this room, but the other room, there might be some malicious actors that sends in ABAP code that does something strange, right? But it doesn't really matter because these environments are completely separate. Just run everything and then it deletes the system again. So it actually takes into account the worst case scenario for getting changes into the system. And we're doing this at a budget of €0. If you've not heard a bit about what is continuous integration, I have this old blog post and links to the slides, right? But I recommend set up continuous integration, do your code review process, and get started from there. If you don't have the feedback, again, the feedback loop to the LLMs, yeah, perhaps sometimes it will work, but then it does something different. And you need to instruct it all the time, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. But overall, it's the wrong direction, in my opinion. Of course, it does something wrong, but then adjust the feedback loop. Yeah, Git is great. So this is a kind of a diagram that I did. So we can connect LLMs via MCP and whatever directly to the SAP system. I don't trust LLMs that much nowadays. Anything can happen, right? And again, taking the example with the backlog, we have 100 issues in the backlog. Go do it, LLM. It will implement these 100 fixes in the system, put it in transports. And then what the next thing that's going to happen is that the system will come to a halt. Because like, if I am to implement something that's important, or the next 100, then there'll be unreleased transports throughout the system. So I cannot get my other changes through that might take priority over something else because it was not tested. So I think connect the LLMs to Git so that you get, again, a pull request with the code changes. And then when it looks okay and the business is ready for it, then a human can pull that change into the system and start working on the testing and deployment process of it. And also looking at the real world, right? What I like to do in the future is like having preview deployments. So like when doing home pages. So if you make a change to a home page in a pull request, then some of the smart modern tools post a link. Well, you can test it right here, right? And I think it's the future is the same with ABAP. You make a pull request and then you can click a link that actually tests it. But more on that in the future. I'm not quite there yet. The good thing is that ABAP Git works on 7.02 and up, so you don't need to upgrade to ECC. You can stay on non-Unicode if that's something. Don't laugh, Holger. I have one of my customers, they're not on Unicode, and we put 100,000 files with custom code in Git, so that's 1 gigabyte of custom code files that resides in a Git repository for a non-Unicode system that now enables LLM and other things that will hopefully help the customer deliver faster and more safely to the business, right? Yeah, documentation. I put in a link here to Google, right? So just an example that when you put your code in Git, it opens a lot of possibilities because Git is normal in the real world. So there's a lot of tooling out there. So in this case, it's Google that has made something called CodeWiki. And you put in your Git repository, in this case, it's open source, and then it generates some documentation. I've not read through this and I don't know if it's correct, but it's nice. So this was 0 effort. At least it says something. I don't know if I'm gonna read it. Because like, do we like in the future, like ask the LLM, how do I change this report to be ALV instead of list? Give me the list of all classic list reports and DINPROs. So perhaps documentation is obsolete because the LLM will just tell you if you ask it right. So does it need to query the documentation, or does it, because it can make the documentation from the code, right? Let's see how that all turns out. You never know. People like to talk about keeping the core clean. And I don't really care that much. What I care about is keeping the core moving. So if you cannot move your core, or if you have trouble making changes to your production system, perhaps that's where you should start putting your effort. Because like if you're gonna clean it, then it implies that you need to make changes to a system. But if you cannot make changes to a system very fast, or you're on a 3-month release schedule or bi-weekly, then perhaps that is the first step to actually take a look at. So how can you improve the iteration speed of moving smaller changes to production? When you do these small changes, then perhaps you can have LLMs actually do the changes, and then the testing will go faster, meaning that you can deliver business value to your business faster, right? Yeah, so keep the core moving, keeping it clean. Yeah, you can always clean up later. And I think especially in a few years, like LLMs can do anything. So it's just a matter of asking the LLM, clean up my system, and then you get the transports. But if I cannot move the transport, it doesn't matter. LLMs will get there, but your business process and your software delivery cycle might not be there. So it doesn't really matter if the LLMs can actually do all the things. Yeah, ABAP is not dead, right? And ABAP is kind of like the sun. ABAP will keep shining for 1 million years. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, and Blue Sky, or I think my email address is also somewhere in there. And feel free to contact me. And like, it is open source, some of this, so you can also just open an issue and then somebody might help you, right? So have one of the main ABAP Git maintainers sitting over there in the dark, Mark. So Mark might answer you, or somebody else from the community might help you, or nobody might help you, right? So if you want help fast, then there's also like a sponsor button on GitHub. So if you buy Mark a coffee, then you probably get on the top priority list, right?
Here coffees for free.
Yeah, but at home, at home it's none.
So use the moment, guys.
Exactly. I'm gonna get coffee after this. I have some stickers, so please feel free to say hi and then get a sticker or two, right? The slides are online here. Of course, also hosted on GitHub. And for all the typos that are in there, please go fix it. Open a pull request. Like in any other programming language, that being ABAP or TypeScript and whatever. I'm not sure how much time we have for questions, but I think the next session is the panel discussion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
So now we have snacks and networking.
Yeah. Any time for questions? Yeah. Few questions.
When you talk about ABAP Kit, I've installed it on the system at home, but not gone very deep into it. When you're talking about running it and testing it, you say it's a separate system. What part do you test then? Is it just adhering to the coding program, coding standards, or?
Yeah, so there's two parts to this, right? So there's the static analysis, and we did see this, right? Another part is what I call dynamic analysis, or the unit testing part. So and what we do here in ABAP Kit, again, this is open source. You can just click in here and see what is happening. So Mark is working on an HTML-based pop-up thing down here that we are talking about, exchanging knowledge and sharing our opinions. How should this work, right? And we have a Christian Günther that is, I think he's not here. But anyhow, all of this, every time Mark does a change, it runs a static analysis. So that's here. And again, there's various rules. So in this case, for the static analysis, there's 177 different rules that can be enabled. Of course, it depends on what scenarios that you want to run, which to enable. What it also does, and now it's getting fancy, right? It's down here in GitHub Actions. And again, this is the free tier of GitHub Actions for public projects. So you can also try this for free, create an account for this repository and then run it. What it does here in 1 minute and 6 seconds is running unit tests. So down here we have all the different unit tests running, or not all of them, a subset. And there is no real SAP system because like everybody can make malicious commits. So this runs completely isolated in a free runner on GitHub. And there is some tricks to it, right? What it does to execute this ABAP code is using a different open source project. So over here, I have some ABAP code. And again, this is running the browser as JavaScript. If I do something, AI conference for you. Then it takes the ABAP code here, transpiles that to JavaScript in the browser, runs the JavaScript in the browser and shows the output over here, given the ABAP code over here. So you can say instead of like mocking, a lot of mocking, like when doing unit tests, this kind of mocks the entire system. It's running a SQLite. I think this version doesn't run SQLite because it's not needed in this case. But in the case that we saw with ABAP Git, it's running a SQLite, which is a popular tool for local development environments testing, right? So just like the normal world, execute the ABAP code in a cheap and fast way that is isolated. So all this continuous integration, it's important to know that it's all isolated. So you actually get the feedback exactly on what you have changed instead of like what's in the system that might have impact from other developers. So both, yeah. It's a bit complicated, and we can talk more about it after the session.
So the session was also about the feedback, right? So if you use LLMs, they also may, the result of LLM work, you know what to expect. So when you want to give the feedback, and then you want to get that feedback as an input for the next LLM code. So for example, how do you manage the feedback for LLMs, and how you make sure that that feedback is considered in the next iterations?
Yeah, so I typically just run all vanilla GitHub Copilot, so no skills and all that. Where I'm at is like, it's this guy here. Like when I import some code from GitHub into the system, it might give a syntax error. That means then I'll typically go back and change the static analysis to avoid that static or get earlier feedback on that static analysis error. So that's kind of my feedback loop. Add more dynamic tests, add more static tests, and if it's like more fluffy, then my plan is to do more skills based. Make a markdown file, say you're not supposed to do this or only do that on something. I'm not there yet. Yeah, perhaps we're running out of time.
Yeah, last question, because it's time for the break that you're now concluding.
Yeah. You're talking about running the agentic AI off stack, but that then is only with this ABAP lint, and you're not running like a local ABAP instance or something.
No, because like I have been running the local ABAP developer edition, right? But the problem from my side is like you need to start from somewhere, and getting feedback on exactly the commits and your 100 people that will open pull requests, running that in the cloud will be expensive. And you can of course spin up SAP systems to do this, so everybody gets one system, but it would be expensive and it'd be slow. I like to commit often. So if it takes like half an hour to spin up the latest S/4HANA 200 gigabyte system, then I'm not getting continuous feedback, then I'm getting continuous waiting. So I'm trying to avoid having real systems when possible. I think in a big, nice setup, yeah, do it, but do it after do the fast feedback first and then the slower feedback later, which might involve spinning up a complete SAP system. More questions, catch me tomorrow or online somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.